to call the Community Redevelopment Agency regular meeting June 28th. The time is 6:02. Madam Clerk?
Chair Lawson,
Here.
Pro Chair Templenier, Commissioner McCoy, Commissioner Miller-Anderson,
Present.
Commissioner Botel.
Here.
Also present on the dais, Mayor Felder.
Here.
Chris Smith, Attorney Chris Smith with Pittman Law Group. Jonathan Evans, Executive Director for the CRA. Scott Evans, Director of Planning and Development. Anita Jenkins, Director of Neighborhood Services, and Shirley Desir, Interim CRA Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. If we could have a moment of silence followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Mayor Ronnie Felder. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do we have any additions, deletions, or substitutions for the agenda, Mr. Evans?
Yes, Mr. Chair. If the board would be so inclined to accept staff's recommendation to move item 7D under consent.
Yes.
7D.
D, yes, 7D.
Colleagues, are we okay with that?
Yes.
7D? D is in dog. 7D is going to be Resolution 2023-12, 200,000 available funds. Move to consent. Anything else?
No, Mr. Chair. Just for clarity, that item is just the facilitation of starting the program. The commitment of the funds still has to come back. It was to authorize us moving forward, and that is a budgeted expenditure.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. Colleagues?
That's fine, thank you.
Disclosures by the council and staff. Motion to adopt agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Motion been made and properly second. Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Botel,
Yes.
Commissioner Miller-Anderson,
Yes.
Chair Lawson.
Yes.
That vote passes 3-0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Consent items. Routine business on the consent. The consent agenda is approved by one single motion by the CRA board. Items may be removed or open for discussion. Do we want to pull anything from consent?
No.
Discussion?
Motion to approve
Motion.
consent agenda.
Second.
Motion been made and properly seconded to approve consent. Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Botel,
Yes.
Commissioner Miller-Anderson,
Yes.
Chair Lawson.
Yes.
That vote passes 3-0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We're going to go into presentations, followed by 5A. Madam Clerk?
Fiscal year 2022 RBCRA and RBCDE financial audit. The acceptance of public comment cards is now closed. Chair, there are no public comment cards.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. Evans, who's going to be presenting today?
Mr. Chair, this time, if I can have the representatives from HCT, the audit firm of record for the Riviera Beach CRA and CDE, Mr. Roderick Harvey, who is principal.
Welcome back, Mr. Harvey.
Good day to all. My name is Roderick Harvey. I'm with HCT. HCT is the CPA firm of record for the Riviera Beach CRA. We are happy to present the audited results for the period ending September 30, 2022. Our audit engagement letter was signed October 28, 2022, and we issued a clean opinion or an unmodified opinion, and the date of our audit letter or opinion letter is May 8, 2023. Over the next few minutes, we will go through a series of items. We'll talk about the audit results, we'll go over supplemental slides, and the responsibilities of each of the players in the CRA. Our audit was performed in accordance with GAS. Our audit was also performed to ensure that the Riviera Beach CRA is performing its accounting work in accordance with GAAP, Generally Accepted Accounting Principles. There were no changes to our audit strategy. We issue the various auditors' reports, which are listed. There are no outstanding matters, and all significant accounting policies and procedures are noted in Note 1 of the financial statements. Significant accounting estimates, we deemed those as allowance for doubtful accounts, depreciation of fixed assets, and fair value of pension assets. Significant risk, we deemed it as management override, revenue recognition, and accordance, and also to ensure that the organization was performing in accordance with the state statutes as listed before. There are several accounting pronouncements, GASB 84, 88, and 90. Those pronouncements had differing impacts on the CRA.
Pardon me 1 second, Mr. Harvey. I'd just like to put on the record that Commissioner Chaudhry McCoy is on the dais. Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Harvey.
Absolutely. As it relates to uncorrected misstatements, we have no matters to report. Corrected misstatements, we will work with the Finance Department to ensure that various smaller HAEs are reported and recorded as needed. And we have no matters to report as relates to financial presentation and disclosure omissions. Control deficiencies, there were none. As relates to related party items, we have no items that were identified that needed to be properly disclosed. And the last row there deals with other information, which just simply means if the financial statements of the CRA is used in any other offering, we as the auditors must be made aware of that additional offering. This deck is the required communications that we must report to you as the elected body. You can see as you scan the document, there are no matters to report, but I will highlight several of them for your listening. No non-compliance with laws or regulations, subsequent events, no other matters or findings to report, no disagreements with management, and no significant findings or issues that needed to be reported. We are independent from the Riviera Beach CRA. Over the next few minutes, we will go through financial reporting. We'll look at expense, revenue, and capital assets. Again, we performed our audit to make sure that the organization was performing its accounting work in accordance with GAAP. As relates to expenditures for the period 9/30/2022, expenditures were $11.2 million as compared to the same period in 21, $14.6 million. We selected a sample of significant expenditures and tested those expenditures for completeness, accuracy, and the presentation. We also tested for compliance with state statute 163.387 sub 6. Revenue for the CRA for the 22 period, $12.4 million as compared to $10 million for the 21 period. We tested a sample of significant revenue streams and tested those revenues for existence, accuracy, and the presentation of that revenue. Again, we tested to ensure that the organization was in conformance with state statute 163.387 sub 7. As relates to capital assets, total balance $25.1 million for 9/30/22 as compared to $21.1 million for the same period 21. The increase is primarily a result of land purchase by the CRA. Our responsibility, again, is to issue an opinion on the financial statements. We also have a responsibility to consider the control environment, although we do not express an opinion on a control environment. If there are issues identified, those issues will fall into two categories. Those issues could be a significant deficiency or material weakness. Significant deficiencies are a deficiency or control, or it's the combination of deficiencies in internal controls over financial reporting that are less severe than a material weakness, yet important enough to merit attention of those charged with governance. A material weakness, which is your higher level, is a deficiency or a combination of deficiencies in control such that there's a reasonable possibility that a material misstatement within the entity's financial statements will not or may not be prevented, detected, or corrected on a timely basis. As relates to findings for the CRA, we have no matters to report. Management responsibility is to, we're talking about responsibility. Management responsibilities is the fair presentation of financial statements. Management also has responsibility for the control environment, for the design, implementation, and maintenance. Management also has a responsibility to provide or give us access to information, to provide any additional information requested, and unrestricted access to persons. The audit committee or the board has oversight responsibility of the financial reporting process and oversight of the control programs to ensure that the organization has procedures in place to prevent, detect, or deter fraud. Again, our responsibilities are to report to you, and this slide talks about our requirement to communicate to you. There's several things listed. I'll highlight a few. We are required to communicate to you as the board if we suspect or identify any non-compliance with laws and regulations. Also, if there are any issues that we should report via writing. If we're going to communicate withdrawal, we are to do that in writing, and then to communicate any significant findings or issues that arise during our audit of the organization. If the board chair so chooses, I will do my very best to answer any questions you may have. If I cannot answer those questions, I will certainly follow up via email or phone call.
Thank you so much, Mr. Harvey, and colleagues absolutely would love to have some questions from the board. No questions? Councilman McCoy?
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner McCoy?
Mr. Harvey, I guess I was a little tardy. It is an unqualified opinion that you're providing?
Yes, sir. We're issuing an unmodified or a clean audit opinion. Yes, sir.
And there were no findings?
No findings for the CRA. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Harvey, the CDE report, you're going to be going into that next?
So the CDE is a part of the CRA, so I was not going to present that separately since it rolls up to the CRA.
So I will leave these comments then for the CDE discussion then for staff, because I do want us to be able to utilize the resources of the CDE and start moving forward with them. But since this is the audit findings, we will go ahead and close out this discussion. Colleagues? Thank you. Mr. Harvey, thank you so much for the presentation.
Thank you, sir.
Madam Clerk, 6A.
Marina Village Phase 2 project. The acceptance of public comment cards are now closed. Mr. Chair, we have no comment cards.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. Jonathan Evans?
Mr. Chair and members of the board, at this time I'll ask the Director of Planning and Development, Mr. Scott Evans, to make a portion of the presentation and then introduce the presenter. Also, I do want to inform the board they are not part of the presentation tonight, but representatives from JLL are on the phone remotely in case any questions come up from the board. But this is a presentation that Mr. Vaughn Irons will be making primarily. Mr. Evans?
Thank you, Mr. Evans.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and CRA Board. At our last CRA Board meeting, the CRA Board allowed us to move towards a different approach for the remaining elements of the Marina Phase 2 project. And what we have before you tonight is a very exciting presentation. And this is for the next phases of the project. And what they've done is taken a comprehensive approach to bring forward all of the elements for both the restaurant, the pending hotel, the parking, all of them work together. So we're very happy that we've been able to make progress on developing this comprehensive approach. And the development team is here tonight to give you a presentation on the new comprehensive approach to completing the next phases.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, CRA Board, Mr. Mayor, staff, and audience. My name is Vaughn Irons. I am the Chief Executive Officer and Principal of APG Solutions Real Estate Group. Happy to be here with you this evening, and thank you very much for your time. When I was here last month, we committed that we were going to return and continue to share with you the momentum that we were building for the Marina Village project. Also, joining me at some point will be Ezra Saffold, who's a part of our partnership with Tesral, and Mr. Tony Brown, who's driving here from other parts of Florida. But the APD Tesral team has been working very diligently in order to listen to the community, but also listen to the direction from our collaboration with JLL and the staff in order to fulfill the vision, but also give you a balanced economic prospect and future for the Marina Village. And we're happy to join this evening representing this team, APD, Sound and Blick Development, Protective Hands, D-Berry Enterprises, Urban Retail, Rick Gonzalez and Associates as our architect, and Tesral Partners. Of course, we're falling right back to the same development vision. We've separated the components. Of course, you all have spent a tremendous amount of time discussing elements 7 and 8 previously, as presented by the Tesral team, working with Related and BH Group. We have been working with your staff and Jones Lang LaSalle through the economics of elements 1 through 5 that focus on the restaurant, row pads, as well as what we consider to be an entertainment attraction building. And now we thought it was an appropriate time before we presented all the economics to you in the next meeting to at least give you a slice of what element 6 will be, which we believe is an anchor attraction with the hotel concept. And so today we'll be speaking specifically about elements 5 and 6, which are the marketplace and the hotel. And I'm reverting back to this rendering, which was produced for us by RAG Architects, which gives you kind of the vision of how we believe the Marina Village will look once completed, and why we think it's worth the effort to work collaboratively with you in order to focus on all of it in one swath instead of chopping it up into smaller pieces. More specifically, that building there to the left is a real to hope rendering of the design that Rick Gonzalez and his team have presented to us for the Marina Village Hotel. And so what we propose is that the hotel be a Compass by Margaritaville brand. Many of you may be familiar with the Compass brand. It falls under the Margaritaville umbrella. It's one of their hotel brands, but the Compass by Margaritaville brand is a blended brand that focuses on resort hoteling, but also it's a business person's hotel as well that features an ability to accommodate business persons coming in for conferences and other activities, that gives you weekday traffic, but also is a great match with the other Margaritaville property that's here, Margaritaville at Sea. And we believe it'll create a unique collaboration from an economic standpoint to bring tourists in from all throughout the southeastern United States who will desire to stay here at the Marina Village. As we've spoken of the hotel over the last 5 years, one of the questions has come, why would someone stay at a hotel at the Marina Village when they have so many other options throughout Palm Beach County and South Florida? And one of the things that we attempted to do was to bring a hotel brand that would be a great match for the vision that you've told us that you're looking for Marina Village, that focuses on the waterfront, and the Compass by Margaritaville is a great brand for that, as you'll see. My colleague here, Camille Coakley, who's the director of real estate at my company, is going to share with you a few points about the Margaritaville brand. Camille?
Hello, everyone. Thank you. So Margaritaville is a billion-dollar global lifestyle and hospitality company founded in Key West, Florida in 1985. The brand is named after Jimmy Buffett, and it has a huge following, just across the country. And like I said, they're global, so they're in several countries as well. So they're a very strong company with a strong history and a strong following that's well respected. Next slide. So here are some of their brands that they have. They have 27 hotels and resorts, and 7 currently in development. They have 3 all-inclusive resorts in Mexico, Dominican Republic, and I'm not sure where the other one is. They have 4 vacation clubs in St. Thomas, Puerto Rico, Atlanta, and Nashville. They also have 7 residential developments, as well as food and beverage concepts from not only the Margaritaville restaurants, but the Land Shark Bar and Grill, 5 O'Clock Somewhere bars, the License to Chill brand, and then they have some newer concepts like the Prime Steak and Seafood and the J&B Grills. As you can see, they have the cruise ship as well that's outside. And then a lot of their brands also carry different components like the spa and fitness, the outdoor activities, the water sports, family entertainment, gaming, coffee shops, and retail stores as well.
We wanted to show you this image here so that the synergy between Margaritaville at Sea and the presence of a Margaritaville hotel at the Marina Village is just synergistic. We believe that from an economic standpoint, the ability for the Margaritaville brand to cross-promote, that the individuals and families that come to sail on Margaritaville at Sea to stay possibly here at Riviera Beach at the marina versus staying elsewhere in the region increases the economic prospects for families who've already made a decision to come to Marina Village. And there were some slides that showed some of the imagery of the interiors of the hotel. I think we have the early version of the presentation. You may have had that in your briefing as well. But one of the things we wanted to do prior to sharing more about the community benefits was to help you really understand the quality of the hotel, what they have in the interiors, the fact that it'll be a limited service brand with restaurants on the ground floor, as well as a restaurant bar on the rooftop, so that the views and the aspects of sitting at the top of the hotel and your ability to digest the majesty of the marina area, as well as the rest of the Riviera Beach community. The quality of stay, the ability to accommodate families, and so some of the concerns about what type of hotel would it be? Is it compatible with the vision for Marina Village? Is it compatible for attracting all types of people, business folks, as well as for conferences? And we think we found a great blend and match for you, and it looks like they're bringing up that presentation now. That will show you the rest of the audience what you all have been able to see in your briefing packages. And so one of the things that becomes really important is the brand hallmarks, the things that they have as a part of the Compass by Margaritaville. It includes a premium American breakfast. They have a welcome center that's designed as a cabana. They have premium guest room technology, so it's a hotel of the future, not a hotel of the past. It has an open living lounge, and it gives people the ability to fellowship together when they arrive at the hotel. From a competitive landscape standpoint, some may say, well, where does a Compass by Margaritaville fit in the landscape? So it's very similar to on par with the Indigo and AC Hotel, but it's above some of the other brands that people have discussed with us that they wanted to make sure we were bringing a premium hospitality option to the Marina Village. What they really focus on for their guests is providing an experience where people who are traveling for work or for pleasure will choose this as an option and will choose the Marina Village. And this gives you a look at some of the interiors of a typical standard Compass by Margaritaville. It's a quality lobby and arrival place. It's a great gathering place. It has upgraded furnishings, a hotel that people in the community could be proud to have, and proud to recommend friends, family, and guests to stay there. This gives you an idea of what a typical breakfast bar would look like, and again, the lobby. So it's very consistent with the whole marina lifestyle design and strategy. They have compasses everywhere. You have kind of marine life items and artifacts that are throughout the hotel. You have kind of elements, so the hotel kind of opens up into the community instead of being closed off. And so one of the great things is as the restaurant row becomes activated, the entertainment portion of the complex becomes activated, the hotel feels like a complete part of the village instead of a separate component. And then this is a typical look at what the guest rooms would be like. The design, the quality of the guest rooms, the furnishings and the fixtures here. Very simple, straightforward, smart televisions included, access to television of all types, streaming products. But what we hope is that people come and stay here and then enjoy all the other amenities that will be at Marina Village. And then this is what the guest bathrooms look like and some of the amenities, because they all include an exercise fitness component as well. And so, you know, we really wanted to give you a briefing instead of spending all the time talking about economics. We'll get to that in the next meeting, but we did want to give you an opportunity to digest and be able to give us some feedback on this option. We have a commitment to bring it forward, so we're not just saying, hey, this is our idea. They have committed to bringing this hotel to the property. We've done that work. The Sonnenblick team has worked very diligently with the rest of our project team in order to deliver that. We've shared with your staff proof of that commitment. And so it's not just kind of our thought and idea, but it's something that we can and will deliver. So again, the last component, we did want to revisit some connectivity between the hotel and our community benefits component, and Camille is going to talk very briefly about that.
Well, our hospitality and hotel management community benefits program will offer Riviera Beach residents the opportunity to acquire the skills and knowledge needed to obtain positions on this particular project and also in the field of hospitality. Some of our training topics would include, in particular, the hospitality and hotel management would be customer service training. As we all know, that is a lost art. Food safety and compliance, culinary catering and training, and Good Food and Company is an organization that we will be working with, and they already have a very strong culinary training program that's been very successful at placing young people into jobs in the industry. Also, that would include things like menu management, business communication skills, conflict resolution skills, and also tourism. And also, it's an opportunity not only for people to work, but also there will be a management track as well, so people can go into a clear path into management positions as well.
One of the reasons we thought Good Food and Company was a perfect match for what we're doing, there'll be several components in our community benefit strategy because you can't find one service provider that can cover all of those different trades, but all of those trades can create available career paths for the residents of Riviera Beach through this project. Good Food and Company has a well-established, well-financed culinary arts and hospitality training program that's won awards. It's a 15-week fully immersive program. We've worked with them on some of our other retail commercial properties, so we're familiar with them and their owners. But the great match for that is the two owners of this company are natives of South Florida. So Osiris Ballard is a native of Dade County, and Chef Anthony Sanders, who's the executive chef of that program, is a native of Palm Beach County. And so they, understanding what we were trying to accomplish here, they stepped forward and said, we'd love to bring our program back to the community. And so they do some special, very unique things, not just offering training, but seeing people through certifications, making sure that participants who go through have multiple uniforms, so they're not coming home at night cleaning the uniforms before they can go to work the next day. So it's a very thoughtful program, and it's won awards, and they're passionate about this because they come from this community. Thank you very much, and we're happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you both for the presentation. Commissioners? Councilman
Mr. Chair,
Botel?
just a comment. I was thrilled to learn that you had Margaritaville sort of in the bag, as it were. You know, it's one thing to say, geez, maybe they'll come, maybe they won't, but it's really exciting to think that they will, and it makes such a synergy, as you said, between the ship there in the port and the hotel right here at this location. So I'm pleased to see that. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
I would echo those same sentiments. We're excited for the presentation. We look forward to the next steps moving forward, paying close and special attention to the community benefits, making sure we're focused on the local participation, the engagement from the residents being involved, and the training that's necessary. So you've touched on all the points and brought an international brand. So we're very appreciative of this. And the only thing that we're going to ask now, I believe, Mr. Scott Evans, is timeline. When will be our next step to have something presented to the board?
At our July CRA board meeting, we will bring the Marina Village project back for discussion, and we will be talking about the elements that were presented tonight, but talking about giving you an update on the progress of our business terms. And we are hopeful to try and bring a complete package to you for discussion in August and hopefully approval in September.
Chair.
Go ahead,
Just
Council.
quickly, when you come back in July, will we have an inkling of what might be an element 4, or is that so far in the future that we don't know yet? I mean, are we almost ready to?
Well, we have some concepts that we are sharing with your staff in JLL at a high level. Of course, you may recall we previously presented the aquarium concept, and then we went back to the drawing board to come up with some more recreational and educational concepts. And so we really wanted to focus on delivering this big anchor. And now that we feel comfortable that we can deliver that, we'll be spending the time talking about element 4 as we proceed.
Thank you. I just follow. I'm not sure that it was the aquarium concept that we weren't so favorably inclined to accept. I think it was the vendor that we were concerned about. So I, for one, am still open to the idea of an aquarium. In fact, I think it would be a great location for a small aquarium. So please don't toss that baby out with the bathwater. Appreciate it.
Fair enough.
Thank you, Commissioner Botel. Thank you both for the presentation, and thank you for bringing this organization to the table. So we're excited.
All right. Thank you.
Madam Clerk, regular agenda item 7A.
Request for the CRA Board to review the development project proposed by Safe Harbor Marina. The acceptance of public comment cards are now closed. Mr. Chair, we have 19 comment cards.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. Jonathan Evans?
Mr. Chair,
I apologize. Is there a resolution or a recommendation by staff for a vote?
Yes, Mr. Chair, that will be incorporated in the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. Go ahead.
Mr. Chair and members of the board, at this time, I will have the Director of Planning and Development Services, or Planning and Development, sorry, Mr. Scott Evans, to make this presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Evans.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and members of the CRA Board. Tonight we're requesting the Board of Commissioners to review the proposed new development project for the expansion of the Safe Harbor Marina facility. The project is located in the area from East 21st Street north to East 22nd Court, between Broadway and Avenue B, and of course the Intercoastal, and it's within the CRA's Marine District. The expansion of the existing super yacht facility will include additional marine service areas, maintenance buildings, a parking garage, and contractor buildings. And because of the increased demand for the super yacht service, this expanded campus will allow them to expand both their operations and jobs and be able to take in additional yachts in the coming fall season. They are proposing the planned construction to be phased as they shift their operations element by element from the West Palm Beach facility. New site plan applications submitted to the city that fall within the CRA boundaries are required to be reviewed by the CRA board, and the board is identified in the Land Development Code as a review agency. Your recommendations tonight, and we'll be asking for a vote to recommend approval, will be provided to the Development Services Department along with any comments that are made by the board. That recommendation is then forwarded to the City Council, who is the development authority for approval of a site plan. And those recommendations per code are required to be made by the CRA board and by the Planning and Zoning Board. And the Planning and Zoning Board reviewed this project on May 25th, and they voted unanimously to approve it, recommending that project to the City Council. The goal of the CRA is to promote increased tax revenue, promote affordable housing, stimulate economic development for the city of Riviera Beach, particularly in the CRA. And the plan provides the following strategies which are related to this development project. The plan requires to improve the look and feel and investment potential of US 1 Broadway, to create jobs. It provides the strategy to enhance our working waterfront and improve opportunities for attracting marine-related business. It also identifies the need for parking garages to allow expansion of the marine industry, and development of the marine industries is recommended to include buildings along the Broadway corridor that have an office or retail use. Placing these buildings along the street encourages pedestrian activity and creates the type of built environment that we are looking to develop along the Broadway corridor. It also provides that the rear of these buildings could be used for work yards, boating, storage areas. However, by having the buildings located along the front, that also provides a shield against those uses which are located in the rear. In accordance with urban design principles, the buildings have been located that way, and this slide shows those offices and workspaces that they've created along Broadway. And this project meets all of those strategies that I just went through. The transition area between the Lake Park residential neighborhood and the project campus is also important in order for us to reduce the impacts on the neighborhood. And this slide shows a rendering of the buffer that is proposed to be along the northern campus boundary, and this is 22nd Court. So this is on the left side of that picture would be the houses and residential neighborhood of Lakeview Park, and then on the right side is the buffer for the project. Care was taken to make this buffer include landscaping, decorative block wall, new sidewalks, shrubs, as well as shade trees. The residents have expressed concern related to accessing the street light on 22nd Street, which is their only way to drive directly south on Broadway. So the project, as it moved its way through the development review process, was redesigned. Formally, they were proposing to close 22nd Street, but they redesigned it based on that feedback to keep it open to allow the residents to maintain the access as it is currently today along 22nd Street. And they are providing an additional connection, but previously they were proposing to close 22nd Street, but they have amended the plan to keep it open so that the residents can continue to freely access 22nd Street light. The project also has proposed trucks moving through the neighborhood of Lakeview Park is also a major concern that has come up. So they're proposing that to direct all their major truck traffic through their 20th Street entrance, which is off of Broadway. Additionally, the access from the campus on Avenue B into the neighborhood will be modified. And this will actually, there's a couple of other businesses located in the area which will also have to utilize the new arrangement. And the access has been modified. It will create a one-way access for residents to drive to 22nd Street so that as they can still move to access the Broadway to turn south. But because it's a one-way, all of the commercial traffic from the campus and the related area, marine areas, will not be able to go north into the neighborhood, which should help enhance separation of those marine uses and the neighborhood to the north. The proposed project will contribute approximately $1.6 million to the city as a privilege fee to abandon 21st Street and Avenue C. And these streets the properties on these streets are owned entirely by Safe Harbor. And the Riviera Beach staff is developing a proposal to look at reinvesting some of these dollars in local infrastructure. The project will also contribute $603 to the city to construct public open space along the Broadway corridor. And we have identified the future City Hall site, which is directly across the street from the Safe Harbor project, as the beneficiary of that public open space dollars. The completed project is estimated to increase the city's annual tax revenue by over $350,000 per year, and they have forecasted that it will provide an additional 100 jobs through the expansion of their operations. The project will also provide the City of Riviera Beach with over $500,000 in permit fees and over $1 million in impact fees. It's consistent with the strategies and recommended development patterns of the CRA plan, and staff is requesting that the board vote to recommend approval of the project to City Council. And the Safe Harbor Development Team is here this evening, and they have a presentation for the board also.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. And if we could have representatives from Safe Harbor present as well.
So while we wait for this project to load up, first, Mr. Chairman, good evening, Commissioners, Mayor, good evening, Planning Director, City Manager, and Senator Smith. Hello, sir. Make sure I'm doing this right. Okay, what you're looking at as you, my name is Richard Pinsky on behalf of Safe Harbor Rybovich. What you are looking at is the current Safe Harbor Rybovich location in West Palm Beach, which I think most of you are probably familiar with. Not all the boats, obviously, but the entire marina operation that you're looking at is being picked up and moved into Riviera Beach. That is what was being presented to you. This is a relocation. Whoop. Why is that not advancing? Ah, there we go. Okay, at this time, I want to introduce, you're all familiar with Rybovich and its genesis to get where we are today. And most of you are also familiar with the fact that Safe Harbor Corporation purchased Rybovich in 2021. So to explain a little bit who your new corporate citizen, Safe Harbor, is, and their corporate profile, I'm going to introduce our CEO of the International Division and formerly Rybovich CFO, Tim Sargent. We're going to be doing this tonight. This is going to be a little bit of a tag team up and down.
Thanks, Richard. Thank you for having us tonight. Good evening. We are pleased to present you Safe Harbor's planned expansion and relocation of its international marina headquarters to Riviera Beach. Again, my name is Tim Sargent, and I actually serve as the Executive Vice President, not the CEO, so my boss would be very upset with that promotion, but of the international operations. Some of you may already be familiar with Rybovich, like Richard was saying, and I had the privilege of being part of their team for 19 years as the Chief Financial Officer. When Rybovich was acquired by Safe Harbor, I transitioned to Safe Harbor to continue driving the growth of the International Marinas Group. Before we get into the details of this project, let me provide you with a brief overview of Safe Harbor. We are the largest owner and operator of marinas in the world, with a portfolio of 135 marinas spread across 24 states, including Puerto Rico, and 20 of these marinas are right here in Florida. Safe Harbor also has approximately 46,000 members in these marinas, so 46,000 boaters in our network. Whoops. A little background on Safe Harbor. It's a wholly owned subsidiary of Sun Communities, which is a publicly traded company with over $25 billion of assets under management. As part of the Sun Communities family, Safe Harbor has access to significant resources that ensures we have the financial ability and support necessary to invest in the highest quality infrastructure, services, and amenities for our clients and the communities we serve. Just the map up here, I want to emphasize the extensive network of marinas that Safe Harbor has built, which provides our members the ability to travel down the East Coast and enjoy our various marinas as they move down the East Coast to Florida for the season and then back up to the Northeast. With this enhanced capacity, Safe Harbor will also be able to attract more of the international vessels. So a lot of the vessels here in West Palm and in Riviera Beach travel internationally. They go down to the islands, come here, stop off, get services, and then head over to Europe. By providing this expansion, we'll add 10 to 12 additional slips for these larger boats. And like we said, we'll also be moving our entire headquarters and all of our offices here to Riviera Beach. Richard is going to go through the details of the project.
Great, thank you. Okay, so this is the project location, obviously, and at the south end, you will notice that we are an existing business already in Riviera Beach. We're not a new business. We're not a startup. We have already begun moving operations. So the operation that you're looking at in West Palm Beach has until the year 2025 to move into Riviera Beach. So obviously, this is a multi-year project, and that's already begun at the south end. The assemblage of parcels throughout inside of this red square, this yellow square, I'm sorry, is already been taking place. And then the trapezoid right at the north end, it's split by 22nd Street, which will be the main entrance to the facility. And so part of this is putting all these together and replatting it all into one big parcel. And just to the east, in the marina that's sitting right there is, of course, the Viking operation. Why does it keep? Obviously not. I'm obviously not hitting the right button. There we go. We are not necessarily here tonight to go through the land use and zoning, but we did want you to know that what is everything involved in what the request is. It's a land use amendment, there's a roadway abandonment, the replatting, the rezoning, the zoning text, site plan amendment, all come with staff recommendation for approval. And then most recently, as was pointed out by your planning director, the Planning and Zoning Board recommended approval unanimously. Not going to go into this, but this is important because I want to point out the working waterfront land use designation. The Marina Village that you just heard about a little earlier is an integral part of what is happening on the waterfront in Riviera Beach. Not just in Riviera Beach, but in South Florida. In fact, the working waterfront that you have in Riviera Beach is one of the last remaining working waterfronts other than the fishing and oyster industry in the Panhandle. This is really it. It doesn't exist on the West Coast. You have to go all the way to Cocoa Beach before you find anything similar, and they're mostly marinas. But what you have going on here is the Port of Palm Beach. Then you have Cracker Boy, of course. You'll now have the Marina Village and Hotel. Then you'll have Lockheed Martin, the Viking facility, and then, of course, this facility. Your working waterfront to the north end of 22nd Court from the port is 1.2 miles. And when I tell you that is the last remaining mile of working waterfront in South Florida, it is the truth. You can't go anywhere else. So what you're doing by preserving the working waterfront, you are making sure that you have an industry that will always be producing jobs, revenue, and new income. This is what the working waterfront will look like after the land use amendment is adopted. Similarly, the same thing with downtown Marine, preserving the working waterfront use, and this is what it will look like afterwards. This is what the site plan looks like. The north end cut through is the neighborhood will have access, as was pointed out. You've got the one-way street coming in from Avenue B. So no work traffic or folks can go out that way. Everyone will have to go out to 22nd Court, but the residents in the Lakeview Park neighborhood at the east end obviously can go up Avenue B now and go out 22nd Street and then be able to go south. Similarly, at the north end of the Lakeview Park neighborhood, while Avenue C is being abandoned, Avenue D is being created, which will allow for those residents to come in and then, of course, turn right. Most of the traffic for residents are leaving in the morning, coming home in the night, and just the opposite for the workforce that will be coming in the morning and leaving at night. This is a 9 to 5 or 8 to 5 business, and so the intensity after hours doesn't exist. You'll see the 20th Street heavy traffic part of the site plan. That is for all the oversized loads, and occasionally Viking uses that as well, and we intend to use that more so. Internally, both in conversations with Viking and within ourselves, we do not intend to use 22nd Street for any truck traffic, as was pointed out. And all of the vessels that you see there now, we have about 35 vessels out of the water, have all come in by water, and that's how they come in. So the 10 boats that you see facing each other at the towards the north end, this is what's new. The other portion is already existing. Like I said earlier, these dry docking, this work is going on currently. What the economic impact that's currently taking place, what you're going to hear in a moment about the economic impact pertains to the new jobs and the new opportunities that are going to come. In West Palm Beach, maximum, you could get 8 of these boats out of the water. Currently, we have about 30 to 35 out of the water right now, and when this gets done, we'll be able to have somewhere around 48 of these out of the water. So you can see the significant increase over what's happening in West Palm Beach, what's going to be occurring here in terms of jobs and economic development. You saw some of these views already. These are the buildings. There's retail downstairs, offices upstairs. This is what the John Berry Park to the right, and then, of course, the new boat slips to the north. The blue buildings on this graphic are existing. Everything in the white buildings are new. Here's the view with landscaping on Broadway. What's not on here that was pointed out to me is the bus stop shelter that will be installed as well. We're looking north on Broadway. Here's the picture looking southward. You see on the corner are entrances for retail. This is another view of looking at the main entrance and where the neighborhood interfaces on the left side. This is 22nd Court, as was shown to you a little earlier. This is, the landscaping already exceeds the requirement, and we're certainly open to even doing more. This is looking eastward. And this is looking back westward. To the left, it would be Avenue B with a one-way in only, no out. This is the observation deck or this is the way the observation deck used to look. There's nothing there now. You have a outfall pipe underneath the end of 22nd Court that's collapsed. As part of the community benefit, we are also redoing the outfall pipe and the seawall. We've also offered to put in an observation deck, which I think is a condition. The only issue is what kind of an observation deck does the city and the residents want. Here's one version of it that does not have any benches. There was some discussion about having a bench for folks to sit. Some of the residents in close proximity are concerned about what a bench would mean to attract folks not from the neighborhood. Those are issues that the city will be deciding, and whatever it is, we will comply with. I'm going to now bring Tim back up to talk about the specific economic development and jobs impact to the city.
Thanks, Richard. I'd like to share with you some valuable insights into the economic impact of our marine operations, specifically focusing on the data gathered from an economic impact study commissioned by Rybovich in West Palm Beach back in 2008. This study aimed to quantify the economic benefits of attracting vessels from all over the world to West Palm Beach at that time. To ensure the accuracy and reliability, we updated the study 2 additional times in 2012 and 2014. The results of these updates demonstrated the substantial economic impact by Rybovich that it had on the city of West Palm Beach. By 2014, the study revealed a total annual economic impact of around $150 million just to the city. That didn't include the county or the rest of the state. Building upon this methodology, we have estimated that the relocation and expansion of Safe Harbor to Riviera Beach will bring an additional $50 million of direct, indirect, and induced economic impact. The estimation considers factors such as the creation of the 10 to 12 new out-of-the-water spaces, the relocation of our offices to Riviera Beach, and our subcontractor tenants that rent space from us. And as we expand that space, we're hoping to bring more of them into the city of Riviera Beach. Some limitations to the overall impact. Of course, we don't have the huge marina that we have in West Palm. And then currently, until they're built, we don't have a lot of local places for our teammates, crew of the vessels, and our contractors to visit. But we believe with this project, we'll grow those. Rybovich, and continuing with Safe Harbor, we have maintained a workforce demographic of about 45% minority workforce. And then the final bullet up there, based on our estimation, I think Scott estimated like 350,000. We did it on our current projected cost of the project to be about $417,000 of direct ad valorem taxes to the city based on the current millage rate. But these tax contributions will play a vital role in supporting the local economy, infrastructure development, and community initiatives. Now I'd like Dwight Stevenson to come up and talk to you a little bit about the construction. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. As mentioned, I'm Dwight Stevenson. I'm CEO of D. Stevenson Construction. And I'm excited to be here this evening and tell you about our role and how we're going to be participating in the project. And I also have Mr. Sappho from All Site Construction, and he's going to be part of the team too as well. We're just so excited to be getting exposed to a different kind of construction, doing water doing construction on the waterfront. It's going to be something that we're excited about. We're excited about teaming up with Miller Construction that has the experience, and that's just exposing us and allowing us to grow as a team. We've worked here in the city of Riviera Beach before, and we've done it successfully, and we really appreciate having the opportunity. We just want to do a good job for you. We've always been able to get other companies involved, local companies involved, minority companies as well as majority companies, getting them involved in doing work here locally and stuff. That's something that's important, we feel, trying to keep the money right here in the city of Riviera Beach. And as well as this type of work right here is just, it's just exposing us to different kind of work, and we're very, very excited to be here. And again, all site, we're excited to be here, and thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, I want to ask a question for Mr. Stevens.
Commissioner McCoy, go ahead.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for that. So you mentioned Sappho.
Yes.
Is he doing work with you over at Berkeley Landing?
No, he's not doing work at Berkeley Landing with us.
Do you have a local company doing work with you at Berkeley?
We do. Yes, we do.
Who might that be?
Mr. Burton. We do have a local gentleman, and I cannot think of his name right now.
Okay.
But absolutely, we have a local minority company working at Berkeley Landing.
Okay.
Yeah. Anything?
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Okay, equally important, because we all know that after the construction is over, which will take a couple of years, next comes the workforce. So the commitment that Safe Harbor has is not a promise of something that you can't measure right now. As I said earlier, all you have to do is go to the West Palm Beach facility. All you have to do is visit the facility in Riviera Beach currently operating, and you'll see the jobs going on right now. But we also know the amount of business that's being attracted by having Safe Harbor as the entity that's going to be bringing everybody. Your hotel, they're going to need places to stay, but it also means more work and more jobs. So what we're talking about is not the existing job and workforce that's going to be coming to Riviera Beach, but what we expect to be new as we increase our footprint. I'm going to bring up Leah Gaines, who does community outreach for our West Palm Beach as well as Riviera Beach Safe Harbor facilities. Leah, why don't you come up and explain a little bit about what we're doing on workforce?
Thank you, Richard. Good evening, everyone. So we want to bring to you a really innovative approach. I've heard you in many occasions sitting as the CRA and as the City Commission and hearing from applicants and developers who are proposing to do projects here, and you asked a question about jobs. And the follow-up question is, well, how will we know that you will actually create those jobs? Well, we're here tonight to say that we're committed to bringing to the city of Riviera Beach a partnership to create a systems approach to ensure that local residents in your community have first opportunity for applications, for notices of those jobs, for hiring, for interviewing of those jobs. And we're going to extend that also for training, apprenticeships, internships, and scholarships. And we'll do that first by working with your internal operations. You have right here in the city a wonderful reentry program. I think it's received national recognition. So we will be working with that organization. They're currently working with a construction transition jobs training program, and we're going to use that as a pipeline for jobs and transfer those skills to Safe Harbor Marina. You also have a pre-apprenticeship program, and in that program you have many similar skills, welding, electrical, plumbing. You also have forklift and aerial lift certifications. All of these are appropriate certifications and skills for Safe Harbor. So we want to sit down and really develop a referral system where we will be meeting with representatives of those entities. It could come through your workforce committee, But we're also going to bring external partners to the table as well. We like to bring community-based organizations who provide services to young adults who are seeking jobs. And we have many of those here in Riviera Beach. So we will be doing that both on the vending opportunities, the subcontractor opportunities, but most importantly, the job opportunities. So to give you an example of that, I'm going to just walk you briefly through how that would happen. The referral system, which would be the partners that we will be working with internal to the city and Safe Harbor, will be disseminating out to the public. Before it is announced to the general public, it will be announced to the local Riviera Beach residents what those jobs are, the basic qualifications for those jobs, the timetable for the applications to come in, and those referral partners will work with Safe Harbor to ensure that that information is disseminated out into the community. We want to make sure that we have a broad and targeted marketing system so that it will reach individuals who ordinarily wouldn't even think of applying for the job because they may not even know about Safe Harbor, and they may not even know really about what skills may be required or that they may not be qualified to work. So we're going to specifically target and create linkage programs so that those individuals get the information, the referral partners bring them in, and Safe Harbor hires from that pool first and foremost before opening up to the general population. Now that still would allow Riviera Beach residents to apply for jobs at that point too. But we really want to create a system, and we think you can take this particular model and you can expand it out to an employer consortium of marine-related industries here on your working waterfront as well. And it can be also applied to other sectors as well. We don't really believe a lot in job fairs. We will participate in job fairs, but we really want to look at open houses and meet and greets, so that the local residents can be invited in, they can actually see the work environment, they can ask questions of the teammates, which are the employees of Safe Harbor, and they can get a feel for whether or not they would be interested in that sort of a job or a career. And at the end of those sessions, we'll have a pool of applicants that we can send out to for follow-up training opportunities and job opportunities as well. So that's really what our approach will be to ensuring that local residents get the first opportunities for jobs here in the city of Riviera Beach.
I did have a question for you, Ms. Gann. Councilwoman Patel, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Leah. And you may know that back in 2018, I started a workforce development task force.
I do.
Yes. I see Mario Bird in the audience. I know Mr. Pinsky was involved in that. Carlos Viduera was very instrumental in having the college, who was partnering with us at the time, and having the college actually create a program that was more tailored to the needs of, at that time, Rabovich. That program, I think, is still in existence down at the Lake Worth campus. It's the Marine Tech program.
It's an award-winning program,
it is
too.
an excellent program.
Yes.
Thank you very much. And I wondered if there will be any connection between this project and that college project. Will you be recruiting from those classes? Will you be offering any of those classes up here in Riviera Beach?
Right. I'm going to let Richard talk about the types of training that we want to do here for the local residents. The college participants can participate as well, but we don't, we're not excluding anyone. We want to focus on Riviera Beach residents.
And Mr. Pinsky, as you're doing that, if you could also reference when it'll be starting as well with that training as you answer Councilwoman Motel, because that was my question as well.
Great, thank you very much. And yes, Commissioner Botel, we're veterans of the job training program. And at the time, we had actually designed a 30-day program that we were also going to be working and housing it at either Inlet Grove or the Ed Rogers Center. We had a $5 million grant in the hopper at Department of Economic Opportunity. COVID hit and shut everything down. So since that time, we've been trying to pick up the pieces. So in-house right now at the facility in West Palm Beach, we have a training program. We intend in the short term to continue that and expand that at the Riviera Beach facility, so the training would be on our property. The goal is to move it to a remote location. That's why we've talked to Valerie, that's why we were talking about what could we do with your pre-apprenticeship program, because that's just a matter of taking folks and just teaching them about marine. Nothing to take away from the Lake Worth campus, but folks in Riviera Beach have a challenge of getting down there. So particularly with the reentry program that Leah highlighted, we have less than a 3% unemployment rate in Florida and in Palm Beach County. So the people we are talking about are in that unemployment small circle. That's what we're looking for, is how to get your folks in Riviera Beach the first opportunity for the jobs. So the last bullet on there to hold us accountable is we have a one-stop shop liaison, the person that is going to be doing the job training and also presenting the jobs. We also in West Palm Beach use what we call a welcome packet. So every vessel that comes in, they get a welcome packet that tells where the drugstores are, where to go eat, what to do. That is going away because we're going away, and Riviera Beach welcome packet will have similarly all the Riviera Beach businesses and opportunities, where to go to the beach. We can't wait till the Marina Village is up and operating, and so that is going to be a great synergy. Hope that answers the question.
Thank you.
And to that follow-up, Mr. Pinsky, the training program that you did state that's currently going on, that you can be moving to the campus, is there any possible way, if we move forward with this project, that we can have the training started now? Because I think the biggest concern is the jobs that are brought to the community and the jobs that are going to be presented, we want to make sure that we get a head start on the training for the residents so that they can be a part of the actual development once it hits the ground versus starting the training at that time. So we have about a 2-3 year run based upon the determination of your construction. If we can have that facility or have opportunities for residents now to participate in your training, your internships, your apprenticeships, and really cater to the residents now, they'll actually be able to take on those jobs as soon as the facility is complete.
Yes, absolutely, and I misspoke. It is taking place right now, but it's taking place at West Palm Beach. So Mario, where's Mario? Stand up, please. Here is the individual that quarterbacks all the job training that's going on in West Palm Beach right now. So when folks have an entry-level job, the first thing we have to do is, here's the water, don't fall in. There are some basic things that have to take place, but advancement happens quickly. The only thing we haven't done yet is has that established for Riviera Beach, which we, quite frankly, need the facility. Right now it is a temporary shelters going on, and we don't want to violate any city code, but that is the intention to export exactly what's happening in West Palm to Riviera Beach.
Thank you for your comments.
Okay, and finally...
One last, just this last
ahead,
little comment. We are currently, once again, working with the college to provide a couple of college credit certificate courses, CCC courses here, and we'll be using our public library to offer those courses. So I'm wondering if maybe we could think about expanding. Right now we're planning to offer business specialist and logistics and transportation. Maybe there's something we can offer that would dovetail with what you want to do in the marine industry.
Yes, Commissioner, did Leah Gaines tell you to say that? That was her idea. That was her idea that we had, and we didn't want to promise anything right away, but the library is actually a location we're looking at.
It's a great location.
Yeah,
Thank
absolutely.
you.
I know she put you up to that. But finally, just to show you what we do in other locations where Safe Harbor is located, from New England, even in Orlando, it used to be the old Mercury Marine, now it's the Marine Mechanics Institute, and hopefully for here, Safe Harbor is philanthropic in their financing of scholarships. So should you have candidates that you do want to send to Lake Worth, we offer scholarships for that tuition, and hopefully when this training program will be doing the same. Again, these are existing things. You don't have to take our word for it. You can kick the tires and see what we're doing currently. Okay, so in conclusion, I know you've got a long agenda tonight, and we've taken way too much time, but I was really excited about the Marina Village presentation, so I hope you get excited about this. So in conclusion, you are getting the relocation of a major publicly traded company into the city, a $25 billion asset company. You have a site plan that's going to preserve the working waterfront. You have new jobs and marine training opportunities. There are multiple Riviera Beach-based subcontract opportunities. If we had the time, Mario could tell you right now about the 15, 20 openings we have right now in Riviera Beach. It's got to get filled. Improvements to the 22nd court and new observation deck. and of course the significant increase in taxes, not to mention the other benefits of the road abandonments and the other features of the open space. I have one more slide that I want to show you, and Eric, where's Eric? Can you stand up, please? Okay, Eric is the general manager of the Riviera Beach facility, and Tim, you've met. Eric didn't know I was going to do this. Eric and Tim are available whenever. You're going to hear, I'm sure, from some residents, you may have heard already, about issues. Like a neighbor, we get very few of those phone calls. When we get a phone call, we respond right away. Most of the phone calls either go to Jonathan Evans, or they go to FDEP, or they go to 911. All someone has to do is pick up the phone and call Eric, and there's his email, and say, I heard this, I think this is happening, can you please get an answer? And we respond immediately. We have right along, but when issues get pointed out and then they have to go through a longer process, it just takes time before it finally filters down to us getting a phone call or an email. So I want to make sure everybody knows, take this down. Yes, Eric, you're on 24/7 call, that we will respond to any concern that anyone might have. We have with us tonight Kimberly Horn to answer any site and planning and zoning issues. We have Tim, of course, for economic development, and Leah on any jobs, and myself, but we're happy to answer any questions from our team.
Thank you, Mr. Pinsky. Thank you for the presentation. Before we go into public comments, I do believe that we had Attorney Smith wanted to actually make a quick statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to remind the commission, the council, as well as the audience, your review tonight. Under the city code, your review is to just verify whether it fits within the CRA's mission or not. So your review tonight is only to determine whether it fits into the elimination and prevention of development or spread of slum and blight. That is the reason for your review tonight, whether it fits into the mission of the CRA, and then send a recommendation to the city council as to whether it fits within the mission of the CRA.
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Botel, go ahead.
So would you like us to make a motion that we recommend that this project fits with, we recommend to city council that this project fits within the mission of the CRA?
Yes, ma'am.
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Botel. She made a motion that this, right, we still have to do the public comments, but there's a motion on the table.
So, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner McCoy, go ahead.
Thank you. So, Mr. Smith, can you clarify, are we being asked to review this in terms of the overall CRA mission or the CRA plan goals? There's a difference, because I think you gave the statutory definition of the CRA's mission, but should we be reviewing this in comparison with the goals in the CRA plan?
You've adopted the mission within your goals within the CRA. When you look at what you published as your goals for the CRA, you've adopted that language into it, and it's the elimination of slum and blight, and that's what you're reviewing it to.
Okay, so to that point, I was going to ask this from Mr. Scott Evans. Can you provide that land development regulations specifically? Because I think you referenced it in your cover page to us. That
Before we go on, Mr. Evans, we do have a motion on the table. Is there a second? Dies for lack of second. Go ahead, Mr. Evans.
Well, I would like to make sure.
Commissioner McCoy, go ahead.
So, thank you, Mr. Chair. It says here, new site plan applications submitted to the city that fall within the CRA boundaries are required to be reviewed by the CRA board. So can you provide me with that requirement? And when I mean provided, meaning what legal section or what code section that is?
The section is the downtown, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, sir.
The section I think you're referring to is the Downtown Development Code, which I did reference in my report. It is the section of the code that describes the process that a site plan project must go through before it's reviewed by the city council. And so that section requires that there's a review by the Planning and Zoning Board and the CRA Board. It does not define anything else beyond the review in that section of the language, which is why I think Mr. Smith defined for you related to statute what that review would be.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Go ahead, Mr. Evans.
And certainly any decision that the board makes, you have to look for consistency with regards to your adopted plan, your CRA plan. So there has to be some consistency with respect to that. And so those are the two things that staff is recognizing that the board that's before you this evening. The city council has different responsibilities and duties, but the CRA board is looking for consistency as it relates to the CRA plan and then compliance with the statute as it relates to development activities and the elimination of slum and blight.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. Commissioner McCoy, any follow-ups?
No, thank you. I have it here. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. So if we can go in, Madam Clerk, public comments?
Noel Martinez, followed by Travis Kodeb.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, Commission, Mayor. Good evening. Great to see you all. You know, as the CEO of the Palm Beach North Chamber of Commerce, I'm here to express our full support of this proposed project. Our organization is committed to fostering
And sir,
economic
if you
vitality.
could state your name for the record as well.
Oh, I'm sorry, Noel Martinez, 12877 Trevial Drive.
Thank you.
Sorry about that. So our organization is committed to fostering economic vitality, job creation, and the overall enhancement of our region's quality of life. And Safe Harbor's project aligns perfectly with our mission of ensuring sustained economic growth while preserving a high quality of life for our residents. We believe the proposal will bring significant economic development benefits to our region, right? Independent studies back in 2014 showed that the Rybovich Superyacht Repair Facility had a huge economic impact. Once the project is completed here in Riviera Beach, they're anticipating hundreds of millions of dollars in economic impact to our city. It's going to create over 100 jobs. Those people are going to shop at our stores, eat in our restaurants, buy gas at our gas stations. We feel that this project is an opportunity that holds great promise to the city of Riviera Beach, and that we ask you to follow the staff's recommendation and make your recommendation for approval to the council. Thank you so much for your consideration.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Noel.
Travis Kodeb, followed by Alex Miller.
And if we can have the individuals that are next called up, if you can come line up, because we do have a lot of public comments.
Good evening. Travis with A37 East 24th Street. Spoke a lot about this whole issue before. Larson, I'm going to give you a call tomorrow. Same with Mayor Felder. I know you met me before too. I want to call you guys tomorrow too. We had a town hall meeting yesterday, the day before. All this is to go through approval. So it's like we feel like the neighborhood has not been represented and talked to about this. For the CRA, you're talking about affordable housing. They probably destroyed 40, 50 homes for this property that was affordable housing. Creating jobs, it's existing business. They're moving more jobs from West Palm Beach too. So that's a problem. I don't like how the CRA says that we're the Marina District. This is residential. We live there. So, you know, really you're putting us to live in fear that there's going to be another smaller boatyard or subcontractor for them coming in and just moving right next to our houses. There's got to be some kind of limitation. That's called zoning. And for you to change zoning and just put an industrial shipyard next to us, come on, guys. Are these boats or ships? You know, this is not a boatyard. The Coast Guard classifies a boat 65 feet and under. They say they can take 455-foot ships in. The building in the front is nice. Right now, you see their example is all just shipping containers lining the entire property. Okay, part of the CRA says there's supposed to be buildings blocking the boats. It's just shipping containers. The residents, we want 22nd Street closed. We just want access to Broadway and be able to go south. We don't want any part of this boatyard. We want to just cut it off right now. You guys need to come out and really look at,
There is one piece of property that was zoned or still is zoned a downtown residential, and you're going to change it to this industrial shipyard. Not even the length of that building, there's going to be heavy work going on, okay? During the day, you hear banging, everything like that, so now it's coming 200, 300 feet closer to us, right next to these other houses. How do you expect people to live like this? You know, you're putting us in a place where we live in fear at our homes. I invested in this city 19 years ago. Now I feel like any penny I invest in my house is a waste of money because I don't know what my next neighbor is going to be. I don't know what this neighbor is going to be. There's a picture, they're going to bring it up too. It's an example of trucks that come through the neighborhood that can't even fit. Now this one's Viking, not theirs. But believe me, I've seen forklifts moving 65-foot masts down a residential street, okay? So there's plenty of issues going on. This isn't them, but this is a good example of what they're doing.
Thank you for your comments, Travis.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Alex Miller, followed by Richard Wick.
Welcome, Mr. Miller.
Hello, good evening. My name is Alex. I'm the general manager of a service company. We have a location at Safe Harbor's location in Riviera Beach currently, as well as in Fort Lauderdale. We employ about 30 people. With Safe Harbor's expansion, that will allow us to have the resources that we need to hire more people, to bring more business to the area, to send more boats up here. And I think that'll make a big impact on the local community. That's more people locally that we're hiring. That's more business that we're sending up into this area that we're currently having to send to other locations or to move even sometimes to our other operation that we have in another state. So I think this would be very beneficial for all of us as contractors in the South Florida area in Riviera Beach, for the residents of Riviera Beach, and I do believe it would bring a lot of money into the area. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, sir.
Richard Wick, followed by Christina Hobart.
Welcome, Mr. Wick.
Good afternoon, members of the CRA. I work for a company called Engineered Yacht Solutions, which is a yacht service company that specializes in metal fabrication and plumbing. We are one of the many small businesses that work with Safe Harbor Rybovich. Not to sound cliche, but as we all know, small businesses are the backbone of our economy. They create jobs, drive innovation, and contribute to the overall growth of our communities. However, small businesses in the marine industry face unique challenges such as high operating costs and limited access to resources. This is where the expansion of the shipyard comes in. By expanding the shipyard, we can create more opportunities for small businesses in the industry to thrive. The expansion of the Safe Harbor Rybovich will create more demand for our services. With an increase of dockage and shipyard capacity, there will be an increased demand of services of small businesses in the industry. This will lead to job creation and economic growth, which will benefit the entire community. The proposed changes will create more space for small business to operate. With the more space available, small businesses will be able to expand our operations and take on more customers. This will help us increase our revenue and grow our businesses. The growth will create more opportunities for collaboration. Small businesses in the industry will be able to work together on larger projects, which will help us share our resources and expertise. This will lead to more innovation and better outcomes for our customers. The expansion of the shipyard will attract more business to the area, which is with its state-of-the-art facilities and commitment to sustainable practices. Safe Harbor Rybovich is already a well-respected name in the industry. By expanding the shipyard, we can further solidify our position as leaders in the industry and attract even more business to the area. In short, the expansion of the shipyard will benefit small businesses by creating more demand for services, more space for small businesses to operate, and more opportunities for collaboration. Thank you.
And if you could just state your name for the record before you leave.
My name is Richard Wick.
Thank you, Mr. Wick. Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Christina Hobart, followed by Nathan Neeson.
Hi, good evening. My name is Christina Hebert. Oh, well, I'll just hold it down. I'm president of Ward's Marine Electric. We're a third-generation family-owned business. We have since 1950, so we're coming up on 73 years this month, actually. We have 2 locations. We've been in Riviera Beach for over 20 years, and as of for the last 3 years, we also have a second location in Riviera Beach at the North Yard for Rybovich Safe Harbor. Without reiterating and repeating what my colleagues have also said, Mr. Evans mentioned that there has been an increased demand for the shipyard to expand. It's not an increased demand because it just happened. Rybovich created that increased demand. Rybovich is allowing not only, somebody said it into the presentation, not only for Riviera Beach to possibly have this wonderful opportunity, but also for the East Coast of the United States to be the #1 shipyard that allows these boats. These boats have choices. They have spending, and they have the ability. They could go other places. They're coming here because Rybovich created that demand. And I know this presentation is showing a lot of corporate coming in, and we're going to do jobs. The reality is what keeps Rybovich going is small businesses, and we're hiring. We know how to hire. We know how to train. We want to utilize those resources. I've taken more notes today on the amount of job opportunity, and Rybovich is giving us that opportunity. So I do believe that this project fits within the CRA's mission, and I fully support and hope that you support this and recommend it to the city. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Nathan Neeson, followed by Bill Axonabel.
Welcome, Ms. Neeson.
Good evening. My name is Nathan E. Nason of the Nason Yeager Law Firm. I represent the Viking Group. The Viking Group does have some issues with the project, but we are diligently working on those issues with Mr. Pinsky and his team. It is my hope and expectation that those will be resolved by the time this reaches you as City Council. And so for that reason, we do not stand in the way of this project. And in fact, if the question is, does the Safe Harbor project fit within the parameters of the mission statement of the CRA? I think the answer is, yeah, it does. So I just want you to know what our position is, and hopefully this will be the last time you hear from me on this issue. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bill Axonabel, followed by Nathaniel Freeman.
Hi, I'm Bill Wolf. I work for AkzoNobel and represent an international paint and protective marine coatings company. We fully support the expansion at Rybovich Safe Harbors. The expansion will allow us to continue to promote our international customers to have a place in Florida and in Riviera Beach to come bring their vessels for service. Thank you. We support the project.
Thank you for your comments.
Nathaniel Freeman, followed by Otis Lawrence.
Good evening. All I can say, I support the Rybovich movement 100%. And my question, not to direct to someone, but they was talking about the trucks that was coming in. I feel like if you at work all day from 8 till 5, you wouldn't have to hear all this noise, none of that. I've been with Rybovich 3.5 years, and I love them. They treated me like family from the first day I stepped on the yard. Everybody, from the boat people, the janitors, to everybody. So I support this movement 100%.
And if you could state your name for the record as well, please.
Nathaniel Freeman.
Thank you, Mr. Freeman.
You're welcome.
Otis Lawrence, followed by Wester Wimet.
Mr. Otis Lawrence.
Wimeto.
Otis Lawrence. Madam Clerk, next person. Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Otis is coming up.
Good evening, everyone. Yes, Safe Harbor Ridge is a very nice place to work, and I would encourage anyone to come and work there. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments, Mr. Otis.
Wester Wimeto, followed by Marthin Milligan.
My name is Lester Winter. I work for Rybovich since '98, and it's a good place to work. That's it, I'm not a long talker.
Thank you for your comments, sir.
Marthin Milligan, followed by Rick DeFetus.
Good evening. My name is Martha Milligan, and I am very
really happy to be in Safe Harbor Marine. I'm working for about 3 months, and I learned a lot of things when in a place that I had never been, and I am so glad to be in Safe Harbor Marine. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, ma'am.
Rick DeFreitas, followed by Harrison McFarland.
Rick DeFreitas. Next comment card, Madam Clerk.
Harrison McFarland, followed by Angus McKernan.
Harrison McFarland. Next card, Madam Clerk.
Angus Mackenzie, followed by Brandy Davis.
Do we have an Angus? Angus?
Good evening. I'd just like to add my support to the project. I represent a yacht management company. We are not affiliated with the facility at all, but my part in the process is actually bringing the business to Riviera Beach and to the facility. And as a company, part of our decision is where we can send our fleet of yachts. And as the yachting industry has grown substantially, this has become a problem. And I would say that this addition to their facility would definitely bring a lot more business to the Riviera Beach area. Thank you.
And if you could just say your name for the record, please.
Angus McKenzie.
Thank you, Mr. McKenzie.
Thank you.
Brandy Davis Balsamo, followed by Travis Beth.
Welcome, Ms. Brandy.
Hi, good evening, commissioners, Mr. Mayor. Well, he left. Okay. So my name is Brandy Davis Balsamo. I live at 217 East 23rd Street. That is right behind the Safe Harbor Marina. And I moved here with my husband in 2020. I'm actually a Florida native, and moved down here because I saw an opportunity with COVID to work from home with a tech career that I came into by building that myself. I actually put myself through school, learned how to work with software, and now I work with companies that are actually larger than this one. So I am by no means someone who is coming to this table saying, you know, don't do this, you know, not in my backyard. I'm a first-time homeowner, and I have concerns about how this fits with this neighborhood that I invested in, that my husband and I put our own, you know, hands into fixing the blight. We have worked on that neighborhood. I wish we could actually do a presentation on that neighborhood, because we have actually put our physical effort, hands-on, into fighting the blight and making it a community. And all we're asking for is some simple things. That the scale of this project is huge. I'm not against it, but I don't think that it quite fits with the neighborhood as it's presented. I think that we need more buffer, and I'm hopeful that we would be amenable to that. I'm not saying that there hasn't been progress thus far. I just think that there needs to be more, because like others have said, there is noise, and I don't understand how in bringing this intensity closer that it's not going to go past the noise ordinance. I don't think that that's possible, and I think that we need to mitigate if we want to give the people who actually invested their dollars into this city a chance, because otherwise there's no point. I mean, some of us are talking about leaving, because if you look at the scale of that, what is the opportunity for the neighborhood if it doesn't fit? There is no opportunity for that neighborhood. That's just how it is. So I think there needs to be another row of trees. I think there needs to be bigger setback. And I think that we need to do either a traffic study, or we need to consider some of the solutions that are in the plan, the CRA plan that actually talked about, you know, lining the streets, making it more narrow, making it not so easy for neighbors to, or not neighbors, but for cut-through traffic to come through Blue Heron, through our neighborhood, and then over into that campus. Because the types of vehicles that are associated with marine are trucks. And if you look at the studies, trucks that hit people killed them. So I'm not asking for anything outrageous, just asking for it to be safe. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, ma'am.
Travis Beth, followed by Morez Dorales.
I don't think I'm allowed to speak twice. I don't know why they called my name again. But the guy that told me I have to go to work, I go to work every day. It's my wife and son that's home that hears the noise and everything like that. And any other subcontractors come up,
hold
I'd
on,
like to
Mr.
hear if they
Travis.
live in the city or not. Travis Bethay, 37
Thank
East
you.
24th Street. Thank
Point
you.
received. Travis, were there 2 cards for it under his name? Okay, go on to the next one, please.
Morales, Dorales, Morez Dorales. Yeah. Followed by Abigail Fleming.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm an employer for River Ridge. The mayor, this is a good plan. Less money out your pocket to give the guys up on the street. Don't boycott this plan. This thing is a big, no bad mind, straightforward, good plan. I'm in this industry going 20 years. Build me, my kids. Good plan, good business, good organization. The officer, less trouble. Get all the guys them off the street, give them a job. That we want. Winn-Dixie lock, City Trend lock up, no job. This bringing jobs. That we want, jobs. Not about motor vehicle rolling. You're going to hear that from Broadway, every street. We need jobs. We don't need somebody at the corner store to beg your dollars. We need jobs. We need job, J-O-B, jobs. No bad mind. The mayor, you're going to stay in your seat. Don't give up this thing. We need jobs. That's the only thing I have to say. We need jobs.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Delroy. But our mayor is actually over here. I'm just the board chair, sir. But thank you for your comments, sir.
Abigail Fleming, followed by Gerald Wang.
Hello, good evening. My name is Abigail Fleming. I'm the Associate Director of the Environmental Justice Clinic at the University of Miami School of Law. I hope tonight I can serve as just an educational mechanism and a supportive mechanism to bring light to some of the residents' concerns. I was contacted about a week and a half ago and I'm new to the Riviera Beach area, so please apologize, I'm getting up to speed and I know you guys are very familiar with this site plan probably by now. But environmental justice is a movement, right? It's concerned with addressing the environmental racism that's embedded in decisions to disproportionately disposing of hazardous waste in predominantly Black communities. And the idea of the movement is it just envisions that all individuals, regardless of their race or socioeconomic status, have equal opportunity to present their views before environmental decisions or actions occur. No community, right, and I'm sure everyone here believes that no community should have to bear a disproportionate share of the negative environmental consequences, right, that result from industrial, governmental, or commercial operations. And communities are entitled to participate in the decision-making process. And I think the United States government, as you guys probably know, has long recognized and acknowledged the correlation between race and exposure to environmental hazards. So all the way back from Clinton and the original executive order in 1994, right now to currently President Biden issuing a slew of executive orders that really tackle environmental injustices and the climate crisis. The Environmental Protection Agency has created an amazing EJ screening tool. I have a copy of the community report, and I'd love to hand this off to someone to review, just to understand the current status of this block group, the exposures that they currently face. And that's not even addressing some of the traffic and noise concerns that some of the residents I know have already presented to you and to others. So when we're thinking about the CRA mission, eliminating blight, creating jobs, and making sure, again, that you are aligned with that mission, We also don't want to displace, right, residents that are currently there. We want to make sure all the benefits that were discussed tonight are seen in the Lakeview Park community. I was encouraged to hear about Safe Harbor's systemic approach to jobs, and it was encouraging to see all the small business support there. But I think the residents that are living right there also want to see some protections, I think as Brandy Davis talked about, related to traffic and noise, air quality, and especially stormwater. We've heard a lot of commitments, but I think residents are also worried about enforcement, as they reasonably should be. And what type of mechanisms is Safe Harbor willing to discuss to make sure that those are enforced through a community benefits agreement? And thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
And thank you for your comments. And if we can't have everybody in the audience, please silence your phones.
Gerald Wang.
Good evening. Gerald Ward, 2135 Broadway in the great city of Riviera Beach. I'm probably about the oldest person here now dealing with this. Obviously, Safe Harbor is doing what we conceived with the first CRA board, which had council plus two private members, public members, and the Inland Harbor Plan was devised at that time. The first plan, draft plan, proposed all the way to Blue Heron Boulevard would be effectively working waterfront. Devander Khan, our CDEC, even did a plan for an inland boat basin. Back then we talked about smaller boats. So this is a conflict. The plan, Inland Harbor Plan, was revised to take from Blue Heron down to 20th Street. Obviously, the Viking folks came in May 1999 and acquired lots of area. John Staluppi of the 90s and into this century acquired even more. So there's the conflict of a residential area that the Inland Harbor Plan designated. Now we're talking 22nd Court as sort of the divide line with this particular project. There's no way this project can be effectively turned down. What the problem is the devil's in the details. When Rabovich first came in, they got the traffic light at 22nd Street without a warrant. I've done the public records request. There's no documentation. The concept was that 20th Street would be the main entrance for the major development of working waterfront. The 22nd Street allowed a outfall or exit from Blue Heron through for the residents, which you clearly, or Scott defined as they needed south abilities, and they still need to get out to the south. McKinney came in circa 2007. She was here 96 to 2016, 20 years, and on a Tuesday night cocked up the US 1 plan. Came back 8 days later, and the council adopted that plan, and DOT built it with the current median, which has very limited cross traffic. And if you look at the document I handed out, which is the code of the city, this is the law of the city, that 2965 clearly says that the design, which you don't need to fix tonight, but by the time it gets to you, you have to have conformance with the current code of the city or a variance.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Ward.
We need you to take a look at that document. We've got to get to
Thank you for
resolve
your comments, Mr. Ward.
and solve the people problems.
Thank you, Mr. Ward.
There are certain other things that need to be talked about, like drainage.
Mr. Chair, that is the end of public comments.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Can you double check if those were general public comments or if those comments for item 7?
They're general.
Those are general public. We're on item 7A.
Yeah.
So general public comments, we're going to take immediately following this item. If you just have general comments, we're going to take that. Commissioner McCoy, go ahead.
Well, if they pertain to this item, I mean, if they have the desire to speak on this item and they, for whatever reason, didn't include it, the number, then they should be provided the opportunity to speak.
We don't know which items or which individuals wanted to speak, so we'd have to go through all the public comments to determine who wanted to speak on this item.
The item states general comment cards.
Okay. How many public comment cards do we have, Madam Clerk?
I mean, 8 public comment cards.
Colleagues, do we want to go ahead and take public comment cards as well, or dispose of this item?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. McCoy, go ahead.
I mean, if they have a desire to speak on this item, they should be permitted to.
Commissioner McCoy, we'd have to go through every public comment card and ask the individual if they have a desire to speak. We don't know if they put general public comment card. So just one person yelling it out is not going to determine what we do, Commissioner McCoy.
Or do we not recognize her?
So what we're saying is that would we like to take public comments as the pleasure of the board and go forward before we dispose of this item, because we have 8 public comment cards, which I'm inclined to doing that. I don't know which person, we'd have to go through it. So to that point, we can take those comments, but we can't just decide what we're going to do now on the fly. So,
Chair,
Commissioner McCoy, go
we're
ahead.
obligated under 286 that a person who desires to speak must be given a reasonable opportunity to be heard. If, in whatever reason, she may have inadvertently placed a card or whoever else placed a card and didn't designate the correct item, that does not preclude you as the chair to make a decision to allow them to speak. I mean, the intent was there. So,
Mr. McCoy, I did state originally, if we'd like to proceed,
but there's not
it
a
is the
vote
pleasure
yet.
of the board. There is a vote, because it would be the pleasure of the board to move forward with public comment if it was disclosed on the card that they want to speak on general comment. This is how this board has continued to operate. So we're not recusing her from speaking. We're giving her an opportunity if the pleasure of the board would like to move forward. So as the pleasure of the board, do we want to let these public comment cards speak on this item now?
Yes, I'm fine with that, and that would be the only time.
Thank you.
comment would be open.
And we'll go ahead and we'll be closing public comment. So if we have any other individuals from the audience that would like to submit a public comment card, we will be closing public comment cards. I'm going to read the notice. Comments from the public at 7:30. Non-agenda item speakers. Public comments shall begin at 7:30 unless there's no further business of the CRA, which in the event it shall begin sooner. In addition, if an item is being considered at 7:30, then comments from the public shall begin immediately after the item has been concluded. Please be reminded the CRA Board of Commissioners has adopted rules of decorum governing public comment during official meetings, which has been posted at the front desk. In an effort to preserve order, if any of the rules are not adhered to, Commissioner Chair may have any disruptive speaker or attendee removed from the podium, from the meeting, or from the building if necessary. Please govern yourselves accordingly. Madam Clerk, we're going to take the 8 public comment cards, and if no one else is submitting a public comment card for the meeting, you will be one of the public comment cards that get to speak now. This is going to be general public comment, and we'll go back to the item after we've completed public comment. Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Delroy Cousin, followed by Gerald Ward.
Madam Clerk, we did close public comments. So if it's about another item that's coming up on the agenda, we can take them, but we're closing public comment with the 8 cards we have. We just call, Commissioner McCoy, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, I think, respectfully, I think we should back up just a second, because now you have folks that didn't know that the time was closing for public comments, and they're trying to rush to put it in for general public comments. But my question is, you had 3 individuals that pointed out relative to this project that they wanted to speak. Can
Which
you
3
allow
individuals,
those,
Commissioner?
Ms. Davis and then Mike and Nora Mahoney at least stood up for this item. At least they shouldn't be precluded from submitting a card later if they choose to have something else they want to speak on. So,
And to your point, we would have to call out all the public comment cards and ask them if they'd like to speak on this item. So if we can call them individually and take the time of the board, we can, but that's not the general practice of this board.
you have 3 people, Mr. Chair.
Are we sure? Just because those are the 3 that stood up? Because you're assuming, though, we have three, there could be other individuals from those comments that want to speak on this item. So as we're having this discussion debate, we can move forward with asking each individual person, or we can just proceed with public comments.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Miller Anderson.
I mean, if you have the cards now, I know you did read your statement and gave the notice. Take whatever we have now, it's over with in terms of item 7A comments and general comments.
How many public comment cards do we have, Madam Clerk?
I have 2 additional safe harbor items that just came by, but I returned those 2 items.
Yeah. So are those general public comment or those safe harbor items? Because we do want to hear from all of the public. We want to make sure that they have an opportunity before we pass or vote on this item. So that's why we're opening up public comments to allow for the residents to speak. And I have no problem with taking all the public comment cards because the residents are going to have the opportunity, but then we're going to have comments off of this item. So as a pleasure of the board, we've stated we'll go forward with public comments. We can go forward with the public comments. And if you want to add those 2 additional items, we can. Okay? So Madam Clerk, if you can begin reading the names so we can move forward.
Sure. I have Delroy Cousins as a general comment card.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. Delroy?
He's done. He passes, I think.
I don't know. Madam Clerk, go ahead. Next one.
Gerald.
I would like to speak on general public comments. I've already spoken on safe harbor.
You're welcome to speak on general public comments, Mr. Ward, please.
Now?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Gerald Ward, 2135 Broadway. I would tell you that my first item on the card is 50 pounds in the 5-pound bag. This particular agenda is overloaded, and obviously the conflict that we see right now is based upon an excessive agenda. You took one item and made it to consent, which did not allow me to make a card, so I was unable to even talk about that consent item. I do have some pertinent comments on that. In some, you've spent $700,000 for signs in the last 5 years. What have we really gotten for that? McKinney came in with the monument sign concept, and that's been a total failure. Take the sign at the Blue Heron and three state roads, Blue Heron, Broadway, and State Road A1A to the beach. It's unreadable in most times. The locksmith shop is a blocking sign to term visibility. Monument signs need to be well designed if you're going to use them. The concept that has been put forth by McKinney in her term allows a lot of problems, and most importantly, what's the purpose of the sign? The business needs to be notarized. There are many signs that are just not usable by the public, and the report, which I would have commented on if I got to speak under the 3 minutes of that item, says that's, I could point out a lot of problems with that report. Phase 2 of the marina, Newcomb Hall, where we are right now, well, this is not well used. The concepts that I saw proposed are high rent concepts. We need another tiki back. That was an extremely profitable business. Maybe some of the city fathers thought it wasn't profitable to them, but they're the ones that executed the contract, not the owner. He was able to generate millions of dollars worth of business. So we need something informal in Riviera Beach, and I'm happy to hear that next month you'll come back with that and hopefully discuss it at length, because that's what these meetings are supposed to be about in the CRA. Lastly, I guess I would talk about drainage of the CRA. Avenue E was the reason for not having a bicycle lane on US 1 Broadway. Next is the fact of drainage. We were to
Thank you
do
for your comments,
drainage
Mr.
with
Ward.
Avenue E. It hasn't been done.
Thank you for
Major
your
problem.
comments. Thank you, sir. Madam Clerk?
Margaret Shepherd, followed by Mike Mahoney.
Margaret Shepherd, Riviera Beach. I'm here just on a public comment. I missed out Mr. Arn being here, but I was thrilled to know that they were here and getting these projects going on. It's a shame and a disgrace that we don't see progress in the city of Riviera Beach. I'm sorry, Margaret Shepherd, Mr. Chair, and of course our wonderful mayor. And it's time for a change. And what I'm really happy about is that we have an African-American woman, Ms. Delsa Bush, that's about to, I'm thinking about the lady, Delsa Hamilton, is getting ready to put in a restaurant that's diverse. And I'm tired of eating tacos and hamburgers and whatever. It's time that the city move forward. I truly don't understand too much about Rybovich. I was accused of being in the bed with their lawyers. I didn't even know who the lawyers was. I had to ask someone who were the lawyers. But I want to encourage people. I've been to the West Palm Beach Flagler office, so I know what's there. I've been to the office on 22nd, 21st Street, and I think it's a marvelous place that make an appointment and allow them to take you through the project so that you can see what's going on over in the neighborhood. I live on 23rd. Yes, I do hear the noise, but I've been through the noise in Detroit, Michigan, when they were building up the waterfront there. And Coleman Young said something, moving Detroit forward. If we do not stop the foolishness, we're forever at each other's throat. We're not going nowhere. We have this black woman coming in. It should be other people like Delsa come in and make sure that we have top-notch restaurants. I asked her today, I said, are you going to have tablecloths? I would like to go somewhere and sit down with tablecloths, with cloth napkins. Well, here we got Rybovich that's going to bring our tax dollars in. If we don't see it, if we don't sacrifice, if we do not make it a point to know our business, why don't people come and bring a restaurant here? Why? Because they come here, they hear this foolishness, and they're gone. Rybovich has been a company that's been here. They've been here, so why should I say they should not expand their operations? I could see if it was just the operation of every 9 to 5, and then they're gone. So I must say to the city of Riviera Beach, I'm thrilled to live in the city. I'm not going nowhere, but I am tired of taking my money to West Palm Beach and Palm Beach cards. It's time that I bring my money, not money, credit cards, y'all. I ain't got no money. I don't know nobody go and say
Thank
I
you, Ms.
have money.
Shepherd.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for your comments, ma'am.
Mike Mahoney, followed by Fane Lozman.
Good evening, Council, Mayor, City Manager. I did turn a general comment card in, for the record, and my wife did too. I don't know why you guys missed us. But anyways, I'll just try to say what I need to say real quick. You know, I'm not against this project. I've been in Riviera Beach for over 60 years, been in business for 30 years, Riviera Beach. So I've got a lot at stake. I've got 2 buildings, Broadway, East Side and West Side, right in the middle of 22nd Street. So I like the plan. You know, I've always said for a long time, because Riviera Beach hasn't been doing too much along that corridor since I've been there. So I've been waiting for somebody big to come in and inject some money into the city. So there's a few things that I'd like to have done specifically along Broadway, of course, my thing has always been parking. The last P&Z meeting that we attended, I think Margaret Shepard made some comments about it, and I know I've been here before many times about the parking for the last 20 years where I'm concerned on 22nd Street. So I'm happy, number one, that you revised the plan not to close 22nd Street. You know, 22nd Street is really a mess during the day, you know, because it's a narrow two-way street, and a lot of the traffic, since they closed the street off on 20th Street, is of course directed into 22nd Street. That's the plan. So I'm hoping that Safe Harbor, along with the city, does something along 22nd Street. Lights, sidewalks, parking, which I need more than anything. That's really my fight with this. You know, as long as the project meets the city's codes and ordinances and everything else, everybody's putting their comments in, I'm all for it. But I want restaurants. You know, I grew up in the city. We used to have restaurants, movie theaters, parades, everything. I want all that back. And I don't see how we're going to do it without somebody like Rybovich coming in with billions of dollars and building the infrastructure. You know, I don't see the city doing that. I've been here too long. I haven't seen the city doing much. You know, I'm not bad-mouthing them, but I want development. And like I said, I need parking because, you know, they were talking about in the promote pedestrian traffic in the CRA plan strategy, they mentioned pedestrian activity along Broadway. Well, you need parking for that. You know, people aren't going to park across the street, which they have to now, to come into my building. Believe it or not, handicapped people have to come across Broadway to come into my office because the parking along 22nd Street where I'm at right now, it's not regulated. It's illegal parking all along that street, and I've presented pictures and documents to the city for the last 20 years, and nothing's done. So I think Rybovich is going to do the right thing, and that's what I hope.
Thank you for your comment, sir.
Yes, sir.
Fane Lozman, followed by Erica Davis.
Fane Lozman, Singer Island. My comments are mainly about general public comment, starting with, where is the Sergeant at Arms tonight, Mr. Lawson? We have one junior police officer. Where are the other two police officers supposed to be here? Supposed to have 3 police, one in that corner, one in that corner, and one out front. For this big a meeting, especially the possibility could be contentious because some of the residents are not happy with the project. The city manager has the responsibility to make sure there's adequate security here tonight, and there is not. Relative to the Rybovich project, Emma Bates and I and others fought the conversion of the city marina into a boat yard. Rybovich decided to go north. That was one of our suggestions. They built a beautiful facility. We now kept this a recreational facility, so the people who were behind the referendum in 2009 or 10 were very supportive of Rybovich staying where they are, expanding. The city took the $5 million waterfront bond from former Palm Beach Commissioner Newell, the $5 million waterfront bond. So they've kept their end of the bargain. We have a recreational facility here, so I have no problem with their expansion up there. I do have a problem with Viking, and I'll talk to that on number 7B. As far as 91-foot trailers, I'll provide photographic evidence on that. As far as my general comment, my floating container home was vandalized a second time. So the whole interior was gutted, and then the railing up top was ripped off, and it drifted into my private property. Okay, I own 51 acres, some of that with another person. But the container home is now my private property. Why do I have a problem? Our micromanaging city manager sent Officer Brau, B-R-A-U, to go post my container home on my property and make contact with lagoon keepers to remove it. Okay? He didn't have a warrant to go on my property. I own that property. He didn't have a warrant to go on there, and he didn't have a court order to remove my floating structure. Okay? I try to call up Coleman and Coppins. Neither of those two guys bothered to call me back. That is not going to cut it. Okay, as far as I'm concerned, until something changes, the police chief reports to you. That's the way the charter was in 1985, and it was never properly amended. So the 5 of you are responsible for the police chief, not the city manager. But when you have a resident that wants to talk to senior leadership, the assistant police chief or the police chief must return their call. We have a rogue officer running around trying to trespass on my property, which he did, and remove my container home. That is not going to cut it. The 5 of you are responsible for this police chief, and you need to explain to him, not only do they have to have proper manpower here, they also have to follow the rule of law when they go on people's private property.
Thank you for your comment, sir.
Erica Davis, followed by Paula Doretta.
Good evening, Council. Erica Davis, Riviera Beach, Florida. 3 months ago, I think it was 3 months ago, I met with Safe Harbor. Very nice people. Leah called me out, and I came and I met with them. And I thought it was a good idea at first. But when I started hearing the residents' concerns, and I started doing my own research riding around this entire city, looking at boatyards and warehouses that were dilapidated, that are dilapidated, I was appalled. And it's like every time a developer or a big corporation comes into the city of Riviera Beach, they come with the same song and dance about, oh, we're going to bring jobs, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. It's not about the money, it's about what you put into the city that's going to bring money. And it seems like it's always boatyards, warehouses, gas stations, and car washes. And it's always in our neighborhoods. It's not on Singer Island. It's not in Palm Beach Gardens. It's not in North Palm Beach or Jupiter. It's always in our little 8-mile surroundings. And it looks horrible. I don't care how much money people are bringing in the city. It has to be the right fit. You have residents that live over there. Have you all looked at the environmental study? Have they did an environmental study? I mean, they're smelling all of these fumes, and they're like they said, trucks, noise. Do you want that on Singer Island? Do you want that in Jupiter? And ask the question, how many of these people that's saying they want this project live in Riviera Beach? I'm sick of this. We are sick of this. And when you do special exceptions, it is not our fault. And we don't have to make special exceptions if it's not zoned for it. We live in this city. We pay taxes in this city. We vote for you guys for our peace of mind and our health and wealth. And that's what you need to consider. I don't give a cuss about how much many millions of, hundreds of thousands, because they're not bringing any millions in the city. Because if they were, we'd be able to finish all of our governmental projects that we have in the pipeline. And we can't do that because they're not paying that much with all the billions that they're making. So consider all of these options when you're talking about bringing warehouses and all of this industrial bullcrap on our waterfronts in the middle of our city. They belong out west. They keep telling you, oh, we can't go anywhere else. There's a reason why. Think about that. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, ma'am.
Paula Doretta, followed by J.B. Dixon. J.B. oh, sorry.
Good evening. My name is Doretta Polk. I'm a resident of Riviera Beach, and I just want to talk concerning about the. I tried to put a card in, but I was a little bit too late. About the chemicals when the boats do come in. What is the toxicity of in an environment also of the chemicals they be using to clean the boats? And if they can elaborate on that. I did talk to the gentleman back there, but my neighbors were concerned. And I want to also elaborate on, we had a town house meeting yesterday, and it was very, very informative. And thank you, Mrs. Councilwoman Kashamba Miller Anderson. It was very much my neighbors and myself was concerned with, because we had heard that they will be bringing the boats down to 20th, but now that was confirmed, no. It's going to actually come from Blue Heron, or either 45th, and then turn into 20th into the gates in Safe Harbor. So that was very nice to know that we won't be impacted as a community having that come through our little neighborhood. Another thing I want to talk about, which I heard on the news, we're impacted, the whole county of Palm Beach County, with a disease called malaria. We have our children going to the camps, and I was just wondering, are we issuing any advisories for the kids, for some of the parents who probably don't know that this is out there? What, the clothing and what they should put on, if they have they do have for children the DEEP, because if our children and also animals are affected by this, they can get heartworms. It's very dangerous. And also, Mr. Evans, since we are under that advisory, the whole Palm Beach County, can they do the spraying in Riviera Beach and also the other areas? And I was concerned about that, if our area could be sprayed for the mosquitoes. And I thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments, ma'am.
J.B. Dixon.
J.B. Dixon, Singer Island and Riviera Beach. I understand the not in my backyard situation. I think that's true all over the country. And I empathize with neighbors in the Lone Pine Golf Course community and in the community near Rybovich. But I also have some experience with that. I bought my first Riviera Beach property almost 50 years ago. Of course, I was only about 5 years old at the time. And at that time, I had this magnificent view of the ocean because next to me was a two-story motel on Singer Island. Well, that motel, of course, got taken down and the property has changed hands a lot. And now the Emirate has built in that area. So luckily, I'm on the 28th floor, so I am just above it. But much of my view has been taken by that. And people who live on the floors below me have no view left at all. But that is what happens with progress. You cannot, at one point in time say everything is always going to be the same, because we know it isn't, and it hasn't been, and it's not going to be. So I would suggest, as I said, I empathize not only with the neighborhood that is experiencing noise. I mean, we have put up with the Emirates construction for God knows how many years now, and are still experiencing, they're about to open, still experiencing noise problems from their air conditioning. We are dealing with those with those problems because we have to, and everyone has to deal with progress. I would really suggest that we look, I don't know how many homes are in that community, but it would appear to me that those property values will go up, not down. And while it would be unpleasant for them perhaps to live through the construction, I would buy there today, wouldn't you? Because someone else is going to want all of that area. Now, you may want to say, yeah, but I just want to live there. That's not always possible. It's not always realistic. But maybe we can take a look at that area and see what would be very profitable for people in that area if they want to move, and if they have to move because of some future governmental decision. We all know that zoning is going to change, administrations change, people change, and needs change. And that is why progress has to be counted on.
Thank you for your comments, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, that's the end of public comment cards.
Mr. Evans, if you could address public comment after we've disposed of this item, whatever concerns that you've seen for public comment, we'll finish with this item. Colleagues, commissioners, if we want to go ahead and ask any questions and have discussion about 7A. Hearing none from the board.
Yes, I just want to make sure.
Commissioner Miller Anderson, go ahead.
If we could just be clear as to what the role is of the CRA's vote tonight, just reiterate that again, and how that, whatever the determination is from tonight, what happens from there when it goes to City Council.
Mr. Chair, if I may,
Mr.
the
Evans, go ahead.
decision that the board will be making tonight to make sure that what is before you is consistent with the CRA plan and consistent with the statute, that is the establishing statute that talks about the charge of a CRA to address slum and blight. So you're really looking to see if it is compliant with the CRA plan and to address economic redevelopment opportunities consistent with the elimination of slum and blight. The City Council is tasked with specific and distinct responsibilities from the rezoning to the site plan and the like. So the duties and responsibilities that the City Council has is profoundly different than what this board will make. There is a lot more discussion and a lot more factors that come into the decisions that the council will make versus what the CRA is discussing this evening and what your vote is. So just because the board votes, whether it's affirmative or votes to decline it, there is another standard of review that you as City Council members will have to look at when reviewing the items that come before you as the City Council versus the CRA.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. Commissioner Miller Anderson?
That's it, thank you.
Thank you. No other comments? Madam Clerk?
Do we have a motion?
Oh, we do need a motion on the table.
Yeah.
So the motion that you were looking for, Mr. Evans, was to,
Mr. Chair, if I may?
please.
The recommended motion would be that, that the CRA Board of Commissioners finds the application or the item before you this evening to be consistent with the CRA plan and the statutes that talk about the responsibilities of a community redevelopment agency.
So moved.
Second.
Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Botel?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller Anderson?
Yes.
Commissioner McCoy?
Yes.
Chair Lawson?
Yes.
That vote passes 4-0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Moving on to item 7B.
Request for the CRA Board to review the development project proposed by Viking Yachts. The acceptance of public comment cards are now closed. Mr. Chair, we have 2 comment cards.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. Evans?
Mr. Chair and members of the board, if at this time I can have the Director of Planning and Development, Mr. Scott Evans, to make this presentation.
Mr. Evans?
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the CRA Board. Staff is requesting the Board of Commissioners to review the proposed new development project for the expansion of the existing Viking Yacht Service Center. The new Valhalla Service and Sales Center is proposed to be located on 3.32 acres, and it's between East 16th and East 14th Streets along Broadway. And the boundary to the east is Avenue C, and Broadway is the boundary to the west. And there's a picture of the proposed project, and that is the view from Broadway looking south. The Viking Yacht Company manufactures Valhalla sport fishing yachts and is requesting to develop a facility to market these vessels and service them. Because they've seen continued growth, they're looking to develop the land that they own along the Broadway corridor to meet the needs of the growing brand. As a part of the project, Viking will reconstruct 15th Street in Phase 1 of the project. The street will be reconstructed with curb and gutter on both sides of the street, a 6-foot sidewalk
on both sides of the roadway, and they'll coordinate with CRA staff to ensure lighting and street furniture consistent with the Marina Village project. This project, the CRA strategies that are related to this particular development project are to improve the look, feel, and investment potential of Broadway. The CRA plan provides that we should create jobs, enhance the working waterfront, and improve opportunities for attracting marine-related business. It includes the strategies for development of the marine industries to include buildings along the Broadway corridor, placing the buildings along the street, and in accordance with urban design principles to create safe pedestrian-friendly environments. This project meets all of those goals, and the primary goal, of course, of the CRA is to eliminate slum and blight, promote increased tax revenue, promote affordable housing, and to stimulate economic development for the city. This project will invest more than $14 million in construction and will provide the city with over $150,000 in additional tax revenue each year once it's completed. The project is estimated to create between 10 and 20 new jobs, and the project will provide the city of Riviera Beach over $250,000 in permit fees and approximately $750,000 in impact fees. The project is consistent with the strategies and the recommended development pattern of the CRA plan, and staff is requesting that the board vote to recommend approval of this project to the City Council. The Viking development team has a presentation for the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. And if we could have the Viking team present.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Mr. Evans, go ahead.
The same standard of review applies to this particular project for consistency with the CRA plan and also the statutes concerning the CRA. So obviously the marine type industry and then the eradication of slum and blight, economic development, job growth, as what Mr. Evans. So you will only be voting based on those characteristics, and there's another standard of review when this item does come back before the City Council, assuming the board votes in the affirmative.
Thank you, Mr. Evans.
I'm sorry.
Commissioner McCoy, go ahead.
Mr. Evans, you said assuming, because this, we're just recommending.
Right,
Okay.
correct.
Thank you. Go ahead, sir.
Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Thank you.
And fellow council members, I appreciate being here tonight. My name is George Gentile. I'm president of 2GHO Inc., Landscape Architects, Planners, and Environmental Consultants, and we're the consultants that have been working with Viking and your staff to create this new sales center for them on the Broadway corridor. We're very excited for it. I'm very happy about it because I will be bringing my small boat here to this facility for its services as well. We're going to go through the presentation if I know how to operate your clicker here. Oop, there we go. This is the request is bringing to you this project for your recommendation to the City Council, but it's for site plan approval to redevelop a portion of the Broadway Avenue corridor, a state-of-the-art marine facility, which is a sales center, and also for their services of their small boat lines. They'll have at least 3 main boat lines in here, which will be their Valhalla boat line, which is their primary small to medium-sized vessels. They have the Contender series that will be here, as well as the Sportsman franchise, which will be here as well. The project includes, of course, meeting the CRA requirements and the codes in this area for industrial warehouse, storage, office, and retail. All of those services are going to be a part of this project. And it has a plat project as well, but we don't need to discuss that here because that will be in front of the City Council. So, Viking's been here quite some time. They have been very involved with your community on a lot of items, and I'm going to touch that at the end of our presentation. The original service yard that the main facility is in now opened in 2002. The Viking Service Center, and they've worked through the years to assemble a bunch of properties in that area, and working with Rybovich to create consistent properties to build both these working waterfront projects, which are key to not only the city of Riviera Beach, but to the marine industries, the marine industries in Palm Beach County, and the economic base, which is very large in the marine industry area in the state. I'm going to ask Dan Simpson from my office, who's our project manager on this, to come up and go over the project with you, and then I'll come back and conclude in a minute. Thank you.
Good evening, Dan Simpson with 2GHO. As George mentioned, we're all familiar with the Viking facility as it stands right now. The current facility, as you see on the aerial here, is the square blue building there closer to the water, just north of your Bicentennial Park. The subject sites are located to the west, along Broadway there, as you can see. Lockheed Martin to the north. Obviously the Viking Service Center, Bicentennial Park, and your Marina Event Center where we are tonight. As I mentioned, the site locations, 2 parcels that are subject to the project. The northern parcel will contain the structures that will have the sales center and the service area, as well as another building in the back, a 3-story building that will house the warehouse for all the parts. The northern parcel is about 2.04 acres, and the southern parcel is 1.28 acres. The subject sites are currently vacant. As I mentioned, the facility site, it's the primary function of the Valhalla boat sales, as George mentioned. Consists of 2 buildings, provides for 3 ingress, egress points on 15th, 16th, and Avenue C. Building A is a 2-story building, consists of the sales, showroom, service area component, and outdoor display. And it's important to mention, and I'll show you later on, that showroom actually is placed along Broadway and has an open component to it. And then the building B is the 3rd-story warehouse building to support the sales and the service center. To the south parcel, that's going to be all parking on that site. And in total, the project's going to be 105 spaces. That's the existing site, and this is what it'll be once the project's completed. Here you can clearly see the structures on the northern parcel directly west of their current facility. They'll work in concert with each other to a certain extent. Some of the services that are offered at the current facility will come over here, along with the expansion of their sales of the Valhalla line along Broadway there. As I mentioned before, the parking site is to the south. Really the majority of the parking is going to be to service the facility is handled on site, but due to the code that dictates the amount of parking required for retail sales, it's really geared towards having a multitude of products. Well, they're going to have essentially 3 boats in there. So rather than selling, hundreds of products and basing the retail component of parking on that, this is going to be, so there won't be a high use of the parking to the south, but it is required by your code, and the applicant has decided to comply, and we feel this is a good jumpstart to future development. Total site is 3.32 acres. Total square footage for the project is 44,000 square feet, and as I mentioned before, the parking provided for the overall project is 105. Quick snapshot of the architecture. It's contemporary, mid-modern. This is something that the zoning staff was looking at very closely. It's clean, simple, creates a straightforward design, evokes progress, and establishes itself as an example of development along the Broadway corridor. The city staff wanted to see that presence along Broadway, and we think that this building has certainly achieved that. This is looking southeast at the showroom building. Those windows along the pedestrian way, those will actually open up. So there'll be sort of an open air concept. They'll be able to see the boats on the inside as well as the display on the outside. This is looking essentially east at the front of the Valhalla Sales Center. And another shot looking in the same direction. The project is consistent with the city's policies and the comprehensive plan, as Scott had mentioned. And I'm going to have George come up and talk a little bit about, he knows a lot about the history of the community investment with Viking. Thank you.
Viking has been very instrumental in the marine area in Riviera Beach, as well as throughout the state and the county. They've been heavily involved in the education of youth, adolescents, and adults in this industry. As you know, that they highly supported at the time for a number of years the Marine Academy here in Riviera Beach. And they've been very much involved with a lot of activities throughout the area. They also are providing intern opportunities at their facility, both at the main service center, which deals with the larger yachts. They are involved with the advisory committee for the Marine Services Technology Program at Palm Beach State College, which not only provides the marine industry area, but other trade that are very important to even this marine industry and other small businesses in the area. They have established other relationships with higher education institutions. They are open to provide tours. They've done a lot of tours of the facility. They have a pre-apprenticeship for the marine and aviation industries, which they do elsewhere, but here are the marine industries. And they had plans to work with Inlet Grove High School Marine Service Technologies program, and will continue to do that, but was stalled and delayed because of the COVID-19 pandemic that we had here. Basically, we were working with the CRA on 16th Street, as Dan indicated. We're going to be providing 6-foot pedestrian walkways on both sides to connect down to Bicentennial Park. We'll be streetscaping that along that area to make it really as a accent to bring the residents down to that area. We'll be providing a decorative trellis feature on the property frontage. If you noticed in the site plan, which I'll show you in a minute, the site plan where the parking area has been pushed back, that provides ample landscape and open area with a trellis feature to accent that area. And we are providing, as per requested, a bus shelter in this area along Broadway for Palm Tram. This was the condition of approval that we have worked with staff and restructured with your planning commission. We've already been to them, but we'll be working on the bus shelter. In conclusion, I just want to make a comment. I know that we heard earlier about the large truck that was stuck in the US 1 area. That truck was brought in not for this project, but for a combination review with the Rybovich or the Safe Harbor group. And unfortunately, that driver did not go up the right road. He went up 16th Street, and that whole thing did not really come out well. So it wasn't for this facility. This facility deals with smaller vessels and would not be a hindrance to the traffic in this area. Any trucks coming in will be much smaller trucks for this facility. Again, we meet all the downtown development codes. You heard Scott indicate that we meet all the consistency requirements We hope that you will support the facility, and we'll be glad to answer any questions. You can see on the bottom portion between 16th and 15th the wider landscape area that is in front of the parking lot, so that we're screening that appropriately from the corridor. So, and this site will hopefully eventually be further developed down the road. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Yep.
Madam Clerk, do we have public comment?
We have 2 public comment cards.
Thank you.
Gerald Ward, followed by Fane Losman.
Good evening again, Gerald Ward, 2135 Broadway. As I spoke before the CRA, the Planning and Zoning Board meeting, which was almost 6 hours and extended till after midnight, this is very similar to the Rivovich Safe Harbor project. It's in compliance in the theory of the Inland Harbor Plan of 1987 that we generated. Working waterfront was conceived back then as the big user of Riviera Beach's CRA, and that was much smaller at that time. The discussion that went on between the Commissioner McCoy, Attorney Smith, and Executive Director Evans, and later the chair, I think, is quite interesting because, yes, you're here to take care of the overall desires of the CRA and the statutes of Florida. What is also interesting is that after McKinney came up one Tuesday with a workshop on the US 1 Speedway and got it adopted by council the Wednesday thereafter to 8 days later, we in 2013 established a number of CRA street criteria, standards, and I've handed out to you for both Safe Harbor and this project, 7B, 3 pages of the code, and it is important to say that the devil is in the details when you deal with this project next issue with the City Council. We need to have, and this is a problem that the podium needs to be over there because I can't address you without, and know that the time is running out. But basically, they need to comply with that statutes, that codes that were handed out. It is important to follow the process of calming US 1 and providing parking. Both these projects need to provide parking adjacent their US 1 frontage, as well as expand the right-of-way of US 1 by 10 feet. That's what the code requires. So it's a very simple solution to help that issue.
Thank you, Mr. Ward.
Well, and I also wish to make a point that the CR needs to facilitate
thank you for your
development.
comments, Mr. Ward. We do
Well,
have to move on to the next speaker.
Well, I understand, but you guys have an obligation to do more.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Ward.
Fane Losman.
Fane Losman. For those of you on the board that weren't around in 2006, 2005, Viking is a bully. Viking came in to the CRA district where there were homes and said, you either sell us your home or we're going to take it via eminent domain. They signed a development agreement the day before Governor Bush signed Florida's anti-eminent domain bill, saying, we beat you by a day, Governor Bush. I reached out to Tallahassee, talked to Governor Bush, reached out to then Attorney General Charlie Crist and said, they're trying to scam the signing of Florida's anti-eminent domain bill. He sent the FDLE knocking on some of the commissioners' council persons' doors. FDLE interviewed these people, and that's what started my whole problem here. because I ended up filing a legal action challenging what was going on. Institute for Justice did, and the Pacific Legal Foundation. They had the closed-door executive meeting where they said, let's intimidate me, let's target me. I'm still being targeted to this day by the city, okay? Viking ended up running out of money in 2008, 2009. They could never fulfill the secondary redevelopment plan. Then they came in here, we're gonna take over the Riviera Beach Marina with Rybovich. We had a referendum, we killed that deal. Rybovich went off and did what they were gonna do. Nobody had a problem with it, but what we have a problem with, they, at the P&Z board, somebody should invite Margaret Shepard on the P&Z board for a brief comment after my comments, because they came in and they opposed Rybovich's plan a couple weeks ago, because they said they wanted to take a 91-foot trailer through their shipyard to move 60-foot boats that they're gonna be building or storing somewhere down there. And the P&Z board gave direction to Sermons to go and do a study and look at what is going on. I don't see anybody talking about that photograph that was presented at the P&Z board. You cannot take a 91-foot trailer and try to turn it around onto Broadway and then turn it down in these little streets. The site plan approval was conditioned on a conventional 50-foot trailer, not a 91-foot trailer. So the comment, some of the suggestions at the P&Z board would be these 60-foot boats that they want to put on these trailers, they can move them by water. Every boat that comes into Rybovich is a giant boat that comes by water. They have a service facility there. They can take the boat from 15th Street and take it by barge or just tow it over there to the facility on 21st Street. But no, they want to take a 91-foot trailer, and what you see is what happened there. So the point is, your staff should have come forward with the P&Z board recommendation. Where is the review of Viking and its trailers? They haven't done that. Go look at the tape of what happened at the P&Z board where this guy behind me stood up and opposed Viking's project. Rybovich's project. I think there needs to be clarification as to what size trailer, and I think you guys can put a set length on what size trailer can go around these neighborhoods, because otherwise you're going to inconvenience and have a serious situation on Broadway.
Thank you for your comments, sir.
Mr. Chair, that is the end of public comment cards.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Comments from the commission?
Mr. Chair.
Ms. Miller Anderson, go ahead.
The only comment that I have is regarding the trailer and the traffic. With this project, will this be increasing the amount of trailers that are causing these issues on the highway?
Mr. Evans?
I did see those pictures. I don't think that it's a common occurrence for those, that size of trailers to be coming in. The facility that's located directly south of here, Cracker Boy Works, whenever they have a large delivery, they have a whole specific road route that all of the trailers have to follow so that they don't end up in a situation where they can't make a turn. So I don't think it's a common problem, but perhaps Viking wants to address.
And Mr. Chair, if I may.
Mr. Evans, go ahead.
Certainly, we can communicate if that is in fact a concern of this board in the recommendations that, or comments that would be forwarded to city staff. That could be something that is discussed and provided more clarity on that specific issue.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair.
Please go ahead.
Just to clarify that the question, or to answer the question further, this business is already existing at the main Viking Service Center. It's the smaller vessels that we indicated are going to be part of the sales center will be at this location. So they're already there. They're not increasing traffic. And I think as Mr. Siemens indicated from my office, this is not a grocery store. This is a boat sales facility. So I go to the grocery store for my wife 3 times a week. I don't go buy a boat 3 times a week. I'm lucky to do it every 10 years if I don't even do it that much. So we don't think that is going to be a situation because the business is already there. So,
Mr. Chair.
And if I could also just make one comment. In 2008, if you look on the survey that you have, this property, the Vikings properties, gave up 15 foot of property to the right-of-way of US 1. So I will be glad to look at that information that was provided you if we could get a copy. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Ms. Melanson, go ahead.
Okay, so he's not aware of the issue that occurred, is what you're saying, basically. It'll take some time for you to look into it and see what this was about, what this issue was about here?
No, I don't think that is an issue, but I do want to have a copy of it. You've been provided it. I'd like to have a copy for our records as well.
Okay, and then once it gets to the other side, when Mr. Evans, they look into it, I would like to know, why did it happen? I mean, if it happened, if this is, it is a photo. It doesn't say Viking, so we'll do some investigation, I guess. And if that is the case, then I just want to make sure that this is not something that is going to continue.
That would not be a vehicle that would come and, tell us, yeah, go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Jeff Staub. I'm with Viking Yacht Company out of New Jersey. And I can speak specifically to that trailer. When it has nothing to do with this project. We were working with Safe Harbors trying to address some egress and ingress concerns that we had into our northern property. And at the bequest of them, we hired a truck to come in and try and make the turn down 22nd Street, because we normally would make our turns into the facility down 21st Street, which they are proposing to close. Unfortunately, the driver got turned around and went to the wrong facility and then ended up having to come out onto Broadway from 16th Street. So number one, that is not a normal occurrence. This was done to kind of prove or disprove an issue that we had with Safe Harbors, which we're continuing to work on. And second, that kind of tractor trailer is oversized for what would normally be in that area, and should never have been out 16th Street and trying to make a turn onto Broadway. So yes, there was a photograph. We were just as appalled by it as everyone else. It never should have happened, and it won't happen again.
So for clarity's sake, there was a discussion, a disagreement between what could and could not work, and there was an attempt to drive a 90-foot trailer down 22nd Street as a bet?
No, not as a bet. So what we were trying to prove or disprove to with Safe Harbors was that their proposed site plan didn't allow proper access to our facility, and it just happened to be that that's the truck that the shipping company sent, and it was truck and trailer, I think, was 90 feet, not a 90-foot trailer, but the total length of the thing, which is excessive for what would, not an accurate representation of what would be used to deliver products or materials to that facility. That happened to be what was sent, and unfortunately, you saw on the photograph what happened.
And I've seen this photograph as a follow-up, so I wanted to get clarity, because it seems like there was a...
That's an empty trailer.
Right. But to drive an empty trailer down 22nd Street, a 90-foot empty trailer down 22nd Street as to try to prove or disprove, doesn't sit well with me when it comes to our residents and the safety and livelihood of our residents, because looking like this blocked off all access for all roads going across Broadway. And
it was momentary. Mm-hmm. But, hey, I agree.
It seems like there was just but that's neither here nor there. That is a different project, as you stated. That was just an occurrence, so thank you for clearing that up for the board. Commissioner McCoy, you had a comment?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Relative to this, but, a few comments that I have. The first thing is I am appalled as well, but, in looking at these photos, the first thing that I noticed is which is something that we've really struggled with, right? And I'm still wrestling with the idea of burying the utility poles on the east side of US 1, and that's been outstanding for quite a while. While I don't think that's going to cure the problem, but certainly, Mr. Evans, I thought there was a conversation that we at least had relative to phase 2 that the burial of utilities would be done in part by the developer. And I can remember many moons ago, maybe about 10 years ago, we had a meeting with the port and FDOT over at the port regarding this same issue. And I remember Mr. Ward being there, but the biggest issue was turn radiuses and just the nature of how close these site plans are to the curb. I don't know that that provides for enough truck radius, even for a standard 50-foot truck. So is that not a consideration in the review process, both on the CRA and the city side? Especially on the city side, but at least for the CRA, you're gonna have a use of an industrial boat yard or boat showroom on a corner where the turn radius is almost very close, if not close to 90 degrees. How's that even fathomably possible, especially when you have a 4-lane road that's divided by another median that has to be at least 12 feet wide? So I don't understand, you know, how that works. While this isn't or doesn't exactly speak to the question of whether or not it's consistent with the plan, our plan also provides for pedestrian traffic as well as ingress and egress onto these primary streets. But how do we begin to address this? I don't understand why we would even entertain something like having an industrial facility until we sort out what those turn radiuses and what kind of vehicles are going to be moving in and out of the facility. And that's a question for our, Mr. Scott Evans.
All projects have, all the corners are reviewed by city engineering, and there's specific requirements and turning radii that they measure all of the different projects for. Now, because it's a combination of city road and FDOT, I'm not exactly sure how those two regulations match up, but I can make sure that that's one of the comments that we bring forward to city engineering before it comes back to you as a city council.
May I add some comment?
Commissioner McCoy?
Yes, thank you.
You brought up the issue with FP&L and the poles, and that is part of or being done during this project. We've given up some right of way to them to allow them to bury their poles as well, or electric.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner McCoy, go ahead.
So you're giving up right of way as well as you're covering the expenses for the portion that of Jason.
Sorry, I'm sorry. We gave an easement for them to put their. Sure, I'll let Dan speak.
So Dan has to come in and clear up that you're not giving up money.
No, there. It's been a coordinated effort between the Viking folks and the CRA, and Scott can add to it as well, but it's a coordinated effort that those lines are going to be dropped along Broadway. That is an ongoing thing. There's other consultants working on that. As part of this project, it was asked to provide an easement for FPL facilities on that, and that's what they've contributed to that effort along there as a large easement, 25 by 25 foot easement at the corner of 15th Street as part of that effort. So.
Okay, thank you.
And then I could add to the issue of the turning movements for the trucks if you'd like. There was some extensive meeting time spent with the city engineer, Mr. Bailey, and he had significant concerns on how traffic flows were going to be coming into the project, particularly with regard to trucks and trailers. As Georgia mentioned earlier, this is an existing operation, and they don't have any problems as it stands right now, so they're not increasing the number or the turning movements or the size of the vehicles that access it. They access it now just fine. The primary traffic will be coming in off of 17th Street and coming down, whereas standard vehicles would be exiting and entering off of 16th Street.
So
Mr.
thank
McCoy, go ahead.
Thank you for actually teeing that up for me. There's no such thing as standard. When you have a vehicle that's registered in the state of Florida, no matter how big or how small, that's considered standard, and they have a right to access any public street. So the gentleman that spoke before you said that shouldn't happen. Well, really, there's technically nothing that any local government agency can do other than fine-tuning our planning to address issues like that, because once you're registered, you can travel a registered vehicle on any street unless there are those safety issues like a bridge that has a maximum load capacity or even some bridge or overpass that has a height. But, I would like to understand how we can at least be more proactive with addressing this, because that's a problem. While it may have not occurred since you guys have been in operation since 2002, I just can't believe that we have a CRA plan that calls for setbacks to be closer to primary roads, but we haven't done anything to address turn radiuses, because we're quasi in a industrial area, and then we're in a downtown area. Hence, there's going to be vehicular and pedestrian traffic, as well as a need to address industrial uses along Avenue C. So I'm not exactly convinced. And even more so, I would say, and this is not personal, I'm a professional skeptic about our development services, because I find it very convenient that they make and choose when they want to make recommendations. It was very clear they made a recommendation for the Robovich Safe Harbor, even here with Viking. But when it came last week to Lone Pine, they recommend that we review it. So clearly, it doesn't pass the smell test. I want somebody to have to stand on the same convictions and also the same level of scrutiny that us as elected officials have, because you can't give me a plan and say, well, they checked all these boxes, but I don't feel comfortable as a department to recommend approval. Wait, on that project, but on the other ones, yes. So while this is a system issue or something that needs to be addressed with administration, I just don't know that I agree with how we're not doing anything, or we're not requiring anything additional to address these turn radiuses, because the number of uses that's along Avenue C, be it Lockheed Martin, even Viking, I mean, inherently, you can't control a delivery and how it's going to come. If someone chooses to deliver some freight and it comes on an 18-wheeler, I mean, the way they come on and out of the property, more or less, I don't know that we can really say which road they must take, but I think we have to do better. And I'm very much skeptical about this plan this specifically fit within the CRA plan. It just doesn't. You can't tell me we have to have buildings, or we encourage buildings close to the road, but we have issues where this could potentially happen. But once this is already approved, we have no way of regulating any kind of turn radiuses or setbacks. So we have to be able to match those two components of our CRA land development regulations with uses such as this. And I don't think we've done it. I mean, this is a prime example that we didn't do it. While this may have been controlled and anticipated, any person can turn down any street for whatever reason, so long as their vehicle is registered in the state of Florida. And I just need something better than that. And I guess I neglected to say this before. Well, certainly, I have to answer the question in the affirmative that this is consistent with the plan. However, it makes me very much reluctant when I see we have turn radiuses like this when we encourage business to be built close to the curb. I need something better than that. I need some assurances better than that, because it's a safety issue as well. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner McCoy. I did have a comment, Mr. Evans, if I could. I know you want to address some of the comments that were made, but there was a statement made earlier that this was a oversized trailer that came down the road. What is the maximum size trailers that are going to be used at the facility?
The existing facility now takes receipt of boats that are in the 20 to 36, 37-foot range. So that is the same size boat that would be delivered to this facility.
So the maximum
most
size,
of those are coming in on their own trailers.
On their own trailers.
Yes.
So we're looking at maximum 30-foot trailers?
The trailer is probably 30, equal to the size of the facility, so
right.
30 to 40 feet probably, yeah.
So we don't know exactly what size trailers, but you're estimating about.
I'm estimating that
30 to 40 foot.
Yes.
And I agree with Commissioner McCoy. The second question I had, well, Mr. Scott Evans, if you did want to address one of the comments from Commissioner McCoy, I had a discussion about the addressing consistency with the CRA plan and the parking lot that's looking to be placed there on the corner as well. So I know you had a comment that you want to address from Commissioner McCoy, I believe?
I think I took good notes
Okay.
on his feedback.
All right, thank you. Well, then I guess my follow-up to that would be the parking. There's proposed, the building on Site A and Site B is going to be a parking lot. Is that a private parking lot for the facility? Okay. So to answer that question, consistency with development of our CRA, that's going to be adjacent to the marina development that we're building. We've been talking about building and addressing parking concerns and constraints, and I know that we really want to try to maximize on that and addressing our CRA development. Parking is a major concern. Turn radius is a major concern. So I don't see how this project, I can answer in the affirmative with this being consistent with CRA development, because with the boat showroom and with a parking lot on the front end that's also private with no access to the residents, this doesn't benefit the CRA as opposed to just putting a business there. It will attract some jobs and opportunities, but I want to see maybe expanding on that a little more. Why is it that we haven't addressed possibly incorporating some type of a public-private opportunity with parking to utilize some of the space there, possibly a garage, some development on that site? Because a parking lot on Broadway is not attractive to me. The turn radius issue is a major concern. This is a huge concern. So I understand that we're only looking at 40-foot max trailers at that facility. Why in the world would they even challenge a 90-foot trailer coming down the facility? That makes no sense. So I need to get better understanding. So it's going to be difficult for me to support this project without those understandings. So if we can get some more insight or direction about the parking, the turn radius on the vehicles and the maximum trailers that will be committed to coming to that site, that will assist me with trying to make a decision on this project. Commissioners?
I like it, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner McCoy.
Yeah, I like it simply because, I mean, we're charged with a lot. Once it's approved, we never see this again. And I don't want to have to ever be told that we could have done something differently, but certainly you got to give us something better than this. This is permanent, Mr. Gentile. I know this is your client, but, you know, I'm not going to be able to support this in terms of site plan until I can get something better addressed. And I'll say the same regarding Robovich. You know, when we get these site plans, we're charged with reviewing them, seeing, you know, seeing that they're consistent with our future land use map and our zoning, and then the various elements of whether it be parking or setbacks or those sort of things. But this is the only opportunity that we have to address these safety concerns. And I would love to support today with the expectation that there's going to have to be a much more in-depth conversation.
Well, we are coming back to you.
Go ahead, Mr. Gentile.
I'm sorry, may I
Go
speak, Mr. Chair? I apologize.
Of course, absolutely, please, go ahead.
Okay.
Always.
We are coming back to you with site plan. This is tonight just really consistency with the intent of the CRA. So we will get with staff and we will discuss those items and make sure that we get answers for you, and we will have that discussion when we bring the site plan back to you as a city council, because that's where we really will get into the details of the site plan.
Mr. McCoy, Mr. Miller Anderson, go ahead.
You're done? Yes. What is the possibility of bringing the boats in through the water, such as the other Rabovich is doing, how they're doing theirs?
The larger boats that would come in, that would need to come in, they do come in the water there. If you go to the service center, they have the large strap cranes that pick the boats up out of the water and put them on the service center there. These are boats that are more well, I have a 23-foot boat. I would be bringing my boat to this facility if I needed it serviced for some reason, or if I was going to buy a boat there, I would buy the boat that's there and it would be delivered and I would pick it up, or they would deliver it to me.
But you can drop it off through the water.
Yes.
You can bring your
Yeah,
own boat through the water.
I can take my boat on the water.
Mhm.
It would be outrageous to pick up a 23-foot boat with something that picks up a 50 to 60 to 90-foot boat.
So are there limits? I mean,
Yes,
would that be
there are. Yes,
reasonable to
absolutely.
say
Yes,
a
they would not
20-foot
have the
is
Viking.
fine?
The Viking line of boats would not be at this facility. These smaller boats, if you go now, are there at their service center, because they have the franchises for these boats to be sold and serviced there. Most of them are new boats, so this is the sales center. They'll have them for show there, and then and they'll do some service there. And I will tell you that they also provide service to the location where the boats are. I can have them come to my location, and they will do service as well. So.
Obviously, I'm not a truck driver or know what the requirements are, but are you all able to implement, like, you only can bring a 50-foot trailer to deliver or pick up something? Like, how do you put those
Absolutely,
requirements in?
absolutely, yes. That would not be an issue. The trucks that go in as the councilman indicated, anybody can drive anywhere with any kind of truck or whatever if it's registered. They're going to the other facilities now. They're not coming through this property. They're going down other roads to the Avenue B and down to those other areas, and so they're not a problem.
No, it is. I don't mean
well,
to cut you off, but
it's
there is a problem because
it's a problem when you start closing roads off, and I think that's all that they were trying to work that out. That's all, and I think that it is being worked out.
That is one of the issues that the Lakeview Park community complains about as well. Now, I don't know.
Yes.
I can't say specifically that those boats are coming to you all,
right.
but that is a complaint that they have, that
Correct.
the boats are coming through their neighborhood. So they're
Right.
getting there.
Right.
They may not be blocking off on Broadway, but they're coming through as
Right.
well. So that,
this would
trying
be
to minimize all of that.
This would
as
be
much as
restricted.
possible.
Yes, we can restrict the trailers that come into this facility.
Okay, thanks.
Yes, ma'am.
I did, Commissioner
Just a
Botel, go
quick
ahead.
question, really
please.
a question, I think, for Mr. Evans. Mr. Evans. So tonight, what you're looking for us to do is make a determination as to whether or not we think this project complies with the purpose and the mission of the CRA, such that we can advance it to the City Council, who would then look at the particulars with regard to turning radius and so on. Could you just define for me one more time, if you would, please, what exactly the mission and the purpose of the CRA is that we're expected tonight to say this complies with?
Madam Chair, Mr. Chair, sorry.
Go ahead, Mr. Evans.
The standard of review and what the board is looking at this evening is to look for consistency with the CRA plan, as well as looking at what the core components of what the establishment of the CRA is to reduce slum and blight, economic revitalization, job growth, and improving the overall tax base within the specific district. So you are looking specifically and exclusively based on what your adopted CRA plan is, as well as what the statute calls for. The standard of review and what you will look at as a city council person is under a different set of rules and different set of standards that gives you a little bit more flexibility and latitude, but you're just looking at those items that I communicated: consistency with the CRA plan, and then economic redevelopment, growth, job creation, increased tax base, and the elimination of slum and blight.
Okay, so if I think that this is consistent with the CRA plan to the extent that it creates economic development, that it addresses slum and blight, then I can vote yes, because then it will move forward to the City Council, at which point we could address other issues that may be of concern. Am I right?
You could, Mr. Chair, you can provide a recommendation to move forward to the City Council for the review that you all would have to go through.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner McCoy. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Evans, so let me just clarify that a little bit further. You know, Commissioner Botel asked the question in terms of consistency, or asking for what's the standard, but specifically the code calls out in the downtown zoning district's standard review process. Letter A says applications for new development on vacant or undeveloped sites, development which proposes a reduction from the minimum building frontage requirements, or any application deemed by the Community Development Director to have a significant impact to surrounding properties shall be reviewed by Planning and Zoning Board, CRA Board, and approved by City Council. So to this point, right, the very thing that I brought up is definitely relevant and germane. We have frontage that has now been reduced in our CRA. So I'm inclined to think that it's much more of a in-depth understanding from this perspective, because only in our CRA do we have the reduced frontage where it's almost at a minimum or almost a zero lot line, if you will, on the front. So that's certainly a part of the review process for the CRA board. And I think it extends beyond just seeing if it's consistent with state law or the mission. I think you certainly do have that because it's called out. Development which proposes a reduction from the minimum building frontage requirements. That in itself is what our CRA does. So, and I'm going to commit to supporting this tonight, but I'm going to tell you again, like, we have to be able to address this. There's no other opportunity for us to address these issues regarding safety. And certainly I would like to see, I don't know where we are, but perhaps this should be had in the conversation with the development agreement that's occurring already with phase 2. I mean, if we're already in there and they've already committed this easement for FPL to do utilities, there needs to be a conversation about what that happens, because if I'm not mistaken, both north and south of 16th Street is a part of this project?
Yes.
Right.
Yes, sir. And we're taking those one of your questions earlier was, I'm sorry, it's not north and south. The project goes from 16th Street to the north side of 14th. So the south side of 16th Street to the north side of 14th. In those 2 block areas, we are taking the utilities and putting them underground. That was one of your requests, that we looked at doing that, and the developer is doing that as part of this development plan. But no.
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Mr. Evans.
I misspoke. I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead, Mr. Gentile.
I just wanted to go over a little bit related to the zoning. So the Downtown Development Code requires that buildings are not less than 17. The variance for the setback is between 12 and 17 feet from the right-of-way. And the purpose of that is to create, put the buildings close to the street, but 12 feet is not too close that it's creating. So that's to create pedestrian space, but not a car environment like a parking lot. Because when you have that, people are not encouraged and don't feel safe to walk around. So that's why those setbacks are set. So all projects have to fall within that range. And to address the turning radius, Mr. McCoy brings up a very good point that all of your key access points for boats and trailers into these large marine businesses need to have turning radiuses that perhaps are larger than our city standard, so that we don't have the problem of them driving over landscaping or over the sidewalks. But for all the other turning radius, what we would want from a pedestrian safety and planning purposes is not to have, if we put a huge turning radius on all of our corners, then you have cars that aren't stopping, that aren't coming to a complete stop, that treat it like a turning ramp. It increases the amount of hardscape. It reduces increases the size of the roadways. And it's very non-pedestrian supporting environment. So towards this comment, I think we do need to go back and look, make sure that the zoning departments are looking at where is our designated access point for the Marine District. 20th Street? Is it 22nd Street? Or is it, in this case, 15th Street? So we do need to find a way to create those specific access points that have those larger turning radius, but I did want to make the point that we don't want to do that on all of our streets and all of our corners, because that's works against part of what the CRA plan is trying to achieve.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. A quick follow-up question. The boat that we talked about in the P&Z meeting, the new boat that's being sold, is that one going to be sold out of the showroom, the Valaterra? The 55-foot Valaterra boat, is that going to be sold from the showroom?
That would be too big for that showroom.
I'm sorry?
That will be too big for that showroom.
Correct, so
yes.
that was not going to be sold at that showroom?
That's correct.
'Cause there was reference at the P&Z meeting about that boat.
That's correct. That would be at the other service center.
And those won't be serviced at the 15th Street.
Yes.
I guess the concerns that I have to move forward with the consistency of this project is limiting the trailer sizes that will be going to this location, addressing the parking, because a flat parking garage doesn't address or assist the CRA with the development of that area. Understanding and knowing the turn radius, those are my concerns for me to be able to move forward. And I understand that we can vote for now to have this addressed on the CRA side, but I would love to see this addressed on the CRA side before we move forward, because we only get, as Councilman McCoy, Commissioner McCoy said, we get one crack at this. So let's get it right the first time if we can address those concerns of mine. So that's why I still couldn't support it. Any other commissioner comments? Madam Clerk? Well, we do need the motion, though. Mr. Evans, you said that we need to make a motion. What do we need this motion to be in support, same as before? Supporting to move forward to the CRA, to the City Council?
Mr. Chair, if I may?
Please.
That it's consistent with the CRA plan and it complies with what the statutory requirements are for the duties and responsibilities of a CRA. So elimination of slum and blight, economic redevelopment, job growth, and the like.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made, probably second. Commissioners? Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Botel?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller Anderson?
Yes.
Commissioner McCoy?
Yes.
Chair Lawson?
No.
That vote passes 3-1 with Chair Lawson dissenting.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
And we will address those items prior to coming to you with the City Council.
I appreciate it, Mr. George. Thank you for your time. Madam Clerk, item 7C. Colleagues, do we need a 3-minute recess? Are we okay? To finish out the meeting?
Finish out the
Commissioner McCoy?
meeting.
Finish it up? Commissioner McCoy, go ahead.
Well, I don't know if Mr. Evans was going to address
Public
those
comment?
public comments.
Yes.
Maybe at this point, we should probably just
We
wait
have 2
till
more
the
items,
end.
so I was just going to
Yeah.
wait.
Okay.
Yep. Madam Clerk, we're on item 7C.
7C. Resolution number 2023-08 of the Board of Commissioners of the Revere Beach Community Redevelopment Agency requests to reject all statement of qualifications, SOQs, submittals received from Exact Capital Group LLC, Smith and Hensey Affordable Group, Inc., and Woda Cooper Companies, Inc. The acceptance of public comment cards are now closed. Mr. Chair, we have no comment cards.
Motion for
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
resolution number 2023-08.
Second.
Motion made, probably second. Mr. Evans?
Mr. Chair and members of the board, at this time, I would ask that both the Deputy City Manager, Elizabeth McBride, and Ms. Boynton make a presentation concerning this particular item.
Mr. Chair.
Alex, Commissioner McCoy, go ahead.
Okay, so apparently that's not consistent with what was just provided in the resolutions that we have here. This says to move forward to phase 2, so that's not what you just read. Am I missing something?
Mr. Chair, if I may. The printed copy agenda, we realize that is inconsistent with what was posted. That actual item is incorrect, just the printed copy, but the online copy is correct.
Well, so let's do this, right? So if we're rejecting all bids, rejecting all submittals, correct? That's what staff is recommending?
That is correct. That is the recommendation.
Well, and I understand why we're doing it, but do we need a presentation for that?
It is solely the pleasure of the board.
I mean, at least I kind of understand where we kind of need to correct a couple things, but, I mean, do we need to go into depth with it, members?
Well, my item and discussion after agenda review was going to be to address and possibly give direction to staff to move forward with an RFP process, outlining some of the concerns, and just move forward, opening back up to the public with allowing for these people, because I don't want us to take another 6 to 8 months to go through the process over and over and over again. Because if we start over at the RFQ level, it's going to be starting from the beginning. We might as well just start at the RFP, outlining some of the concerns that were missed, making sure that those are addressed clearly, and put it back out so that we can just expedite this process.
Okay, well, that's very interesting. That's the first that I heard. Okay.
So that was the discussion we had in agenda review, and I thought that'd be the best way for us to move forward with procurement facilitating this. But I do have concerns with how this got to this level, but we don't need a presentation for that. We just need to move forward.
Well, Mr. Chair,
Commissioner McCoy, go ahead.
so elaborate. I know why we need to correct it, but I think what I heard you say is seemingly we're going to not do the qualification portion anymore. We're going to go straight to proposals.
Correct.
And is that being proposed by staff?
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Mr. Evans, go ahead.
That wasn't something that staff intended to complete the same process to make some clarifications to the existing request for qualifications, to receive the submissions and then move into what ultimately would be the second phase of the process. But if it is the board's pleasure to facilitate moving to the RFP process, there is some work that's going to have to be done on staff's part to change up the solicitation document to move in such a direction. But certainly, that's something that we can do if that is the pleasure of the board to basically fuse the process together and to put that out. Because our intent is that with the request for qualification, the correction should be a minor set of modifications that we would have to make to the document that conceivably we can get the document out probably within the next week or two to get it back out onto the streets, because there's only some things that we need to create to provide some clarity to move forward. So whatever the pleasure of the board is.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner McCoy, go ahead.
I think we probably can accomplish almost, if not very close to the same timeline, if we let that financial suitability piece be done at the evaluation level and not another round. Let that be an evaluation criteria that can be scored, as opposed to creating a whole nother solicitation in itself. I mean, we already know what we want to do, and we're on borrowed time. So I would like to see that we could make that a part of the evaluation criteria, so when that evaluation committee looks at it, then they can look at those financials and determine, who's financially suited to do this, and then score them based on that, instead of doing a separate process to go through qualifications.
So would you be in agreement with the request for proposal adding that component?
Absolutely. That's
Mr. Chair, I would as
colleagues?
well. I think whatever is the most expeditious way to get this thing done. I think we know what we want, and there were some glitches in the first attempt to get that done, but I think the quickest way to do it would be to go right to that RFP.
Agreed. Commissioner Miller-Anderson, any comments?
I'm fine with that, but I did not hear from staff totally so we reject these, and then we're going to go back to the same people, or we're going to put it back out on the street, is what they're.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Mr. Evans, go ahead.
We would go back out to the general public, so any and all persons would be able to participate. We will also notify those that the rejection occurred, and then encourage them, if they are still interested, to resubmit based on the criteria that's provided in the RFP, if that's the direction the board wants to go versus the RFQ. And it is something that we can easily fuse the documents together and get probably the same timeline. There's probably a couple more specificities that we would have to get, because with the RFP, you're going to be making a decision based on that document. And so we'd have to have discussions with the appropriate staff and legal and all that. But I still think that there could be a fairly quick turnaround time to get the document back out to the general public.
And follow up to that, just to make sure it's clearly written, so that there's an understanding as to what documents are expected, so that there's no pitfalls in this coming proposal. Because once we receive this proposal, we want to start moving forward with some shovels in the ground. So,
and let's, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner.
So,
McCoy, go ahead.
I just want to. I like that we're not even going to revisit that, right? But I do want to make sure that I'm clear, and perhaps we need to give staff guidance, because one of those provisions that I noticed in the solicitation, it provided that the CRA board or its designee shall be the reviewers. Obviously, if we're going to go to a different avenue now to just do an RFP, perhaps we shouldn't be the reviewers. It should just be something that's under the purview of the executive director, that you appoint the evaluation committee, as opposed to the way it was written previously. And if that's what we want to do, then I think that's probably going to be much more efficient to do it in that fashion than to convene a CRA board just for us to review that. I think that needs to be a function of the CRA executive director to put that evaluation committee together.
I would actually be in agreement with that. Just our goal is we've gotten a response. We put this out. Well, this is months down the line, so I want to expedite this as the best way we can. So I would agree with Commissioner McCoy. Councilwoman Botel agrees. Commissioner McCoy, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I still want to know. So I guess procurement know I'm gonna show up and ask questions. So I still want to know. So I mean that's nothing new. They know that. So
we can't leave it at that.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Evans, go ahead.
If I can obtain clarity from the board on
Yes.
one thing that I think would be something that the proposers want to know is in the first submission, there seemed to be an inclination that folks thought it was a tax credit or workforce product or what have you. And so when we look to put the proposal out, they're going to bring what they think effectively is what the board is looking to accomplish. And so it is, important that if the board wants to see something that's highest and best use or market rate or what have you, or mixed use with a market rate component, the clarity that you can provide to us and procurement, I think the better off that it was. So there's no ambiguity, because my concern is that you may have a situation where you have a workforce product and you may have a market rate product, and you may want to evaluate both of them, and that's completely fine. But we just want to make sure that when we do put this out, we accomplish what the goals of the board is with regards to this project.
Agreed. Commissioners?
I would like to see a mixed-use product with retail. We've talked about this, retail and a mixed-use product.
Market rate or affordable?
Well, it would be nice to see a mixture. It would be nice to see some market rate and some workforce, from my perspective.
Mr.
I agree.
Miller-Anderson?
I agree.
Market rate workforce. Commissioner McCoy?
I'm okay with that. I was just going to say, well, then, if that's true, that we're going to go with a mix of both market and also perhaps some affordable component, then do we call this the signature project? Because that's what it was listed as in our solicitation, and I'm not sure you can connect signature with market rate. That to me doesn't seem like that exactly meshes, but if this is going to be a signature project, I would automatically default to believe that that's going to be a market rate project. So we shouldn't title it a signature project if we're going to expect that we're open to accepting, submittals and projects and proposals based off of something that's built off of tax credits. So I think that should certainly be clear, because then we shouldn't call it signature. I mean, just that simple.
Mr. Evans, I would be in support of a mixed use, a retail and market rate component for that facility. We did just do our affordable unit two streets up, which will be hopefully ribbon cutting by the beginning of the year. So I wouldn't mind actually seeing a market rate unit there. We have to start addressing that tax base, and I think the housing components, and if we're really developing Broadway, we need to just be creative as possible with developing proper development up and down Broadway and all throughout our city.
Okay. I think unless procurement staff has any additional questions
but Commissioner McCoy, go ahead.
But I think you said market rate, correct, Chair?
Correct.
Okay, that's what I was inclined to believe that this was about, since that's what it said, signature.
Yeah.
So we need to know and say it very clearly, perhaps by vote if necessary, so that there's no confusion. And what that does is, if that's not your business model as a developer, then thank you for your interest, but this isn't your project. So I think we need to be clear, so
and
we
we
don't
have
waste
to be clear because
resources and effort.
Yeah, because it's a proposal, so this is not just qualification. So we need to be very clear. So that may have to go to a void. I wish we had the entire makeup of our board, but we want to be. Commissioner McCoy, go ahead.
But I like market rate, right?
I agree.
You brought up the point that we have Berkeley that has a mixed use component, and then also here at our marina we have a portion that's reliant largely upon some tax credit applications of market rate. But I have to be fair in making sure that there's some inclusion, but certainly if we're going to build a staple around our primary intersection, this is the prime street in our downtown, I think market rate is probably more
Appropriate.
practical. Yes, sir. That's
Agreed.
my opinion.
I agree with you, Commissioner.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Miller, Botel?
Considering that we do have Berkeley Landing immediately to the north, I would agree. It can be market rate, and we have other areas where we can do workforce housing. I'm okay
We're
with that.
working on it. I know Miss Anita Jenkins is working on 11th Street. We have a lot of units that are coming in that area. So we're not ignoring it, but we need to make sure we're also addressing our tax base.
Yeah.
And we have to make sure that market rate assists that as well. Ms. Miller Anderson?
Oh, still the same.
Okay. Mr. Evans?
Mr. Chair, the CRA attorney wants to proffer some suggestions to modify the resolution.
Mr. Attorney Smith?
Mr. Chair, the resolution should be modified. I guess the motion would be to approve resolution 2023-08, but modify section 2, and it would read, the procurement department will solicit a request for proposals which contains statements of qualifications with clear requirements regarding financial document submittals. That slight change would do what you want it to do. It would send them to do a request for proposals, but we'll keep it in that it's going to contain a statement of qualifications.
Accept that modification.
Commissioner Botel has made the motion. Do we have a second?
I'm sorry.
With the
can we-
modification.
Can we repeat that? That's to remove the statement of qualifications portion,
No.
correct?
Section 2, lines 31 through 33 would now read, the procurement department will solicit a request for proposals which contains statement of qualifications with clear requirements regarding financial document submittals. So just a few words we're changing to.
Okay, got it.
So
We're doing another
we're
motion?
just amending the
Motion is the
resolution.
original resolution.
She's amended her resolution, and is the second still
To
stand?
include what our attorney.
To include what the attorney said.
Okay,
Second still stand?
yeah.
Okay, discussion? Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Botel?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller Anderson?
Yes.
Commissioner McCoy? Chair Lawson?
Yes.
That vote passes 4-0.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. McBride. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Boyne and Ms. McBride, for your wonderful presentation. Very informative. Thank you.
Madam Clerk,
You're
item
welcome
7.
anytime, anytime. Thank you.
Madam Clerk, item 7E.
Resolution number 2023-13 of Commissioners for the Revere Beach Community Redevelopment Agency approving the amended guidelines for the Small Business Incubator Program. The acceptance of public comment cards are now closed. Mr. Chair, we have no comment cards.
Thank you, Madam
Motion to approve resolution number 2023-13.
Motion been made and properly second. Mr. Evans?
Mr. Chair and members of the board, if I could have the Director of Neighborhood Services, Ms. Anita Jenkins, to make this presentation.
Good evening, Chair Lawson,
Good evening, Ms.
Commissioners. Thank you for allowing us to bring some modifications to the Small Business Incubator Program that you all approved as a board back in February of 2022. We provided a track change copy so you could see the changes readily, as well as a clean version of what staff is proposing. As you know, we have several opportunities moving forward to encourage and support our small business environment in the CRA, and I would dare say throughout the city, including some live-work opportunities potentially in the future. We'll be looking at the Found Care Project, et cetera, as well as some other local opportunities throughout the neighborhood. And I'll just turn your attention to the major changes. There are a few areas where we provided some wordsmithing and some minor word additions, small word additions, but the primary one that we're bringing is some suggestive amounts for allocation to applicants for various levels of support, from marketing, consultation, et cetera, up to lease subsidy, build-out assistance, signage, et cetera, in terms of facilities. I want you to note that for the small amounts, we're suggesting that approvals for applicants will be left with the executive director, and for larger allocations where we may have to issue a mini request for proposals or et cetera, those will come back to you for particular programs and particular projects. But we're just bringing a suggested schedule of activities within the budget that was approved for this year. Additionally, we also have information based on comments over the last few months from this board on metrics, measurements, reporting, et cetera, that you'd like to see to more formalize the program and the efforts. So I'll stop.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner McCoy, go ahead.
Oh, thank you. I was trying to get you to stop. Thank you, Ms. Jenkins. So what does that mean, smaller amounts and then larger amounts? What's the threshold?
$5,000, and I'm trying to find my schedule here, if you could give me 1 minute. Okay. And I'll turn, if you'll go to the track change portion, and it's under types of assistance and requirements.
Page 8.
I'm sorry. It's going to take me a minute to get there. I was already nearly logged off. Well, Mr. Chair, while I'm getting it up,
go ahead.
if I can offer this, I don't want to, I got to be careful how I say this because, I'm sitting next to Commissioner Miller Anderson. I don't want to tie the executive director's hands. If he has a $25,000 authority, why should we limit him to $5,000 if that is something? Because, I want to be efficient in making sure that there's some board oversight, but there's no difference in his authority already. So if he deems something that's necessary that needs to be addressed, I would like to give him that authority so that way we don't tie up whatever that incubator business is until next month when we reassemble again. So I'm okay with increasing that small amount to be equivalent to whatever his signing authority is, because I think under normal circumstances he probably could, administratively do it as well. I'm sure you wouldn't disagree, Mr. Evans, would you?
And thank you, we're fine with that. We just meant that we'd come back with a specific program and project as you all wanted, for instance, to be kept up to date with the Live Work project or Found Care. But the amounts in terms of the authority, you're absolutely right. That's within the executive director's authority already. We just want to keep you apprised of the program. The other major changes are around some.
Excuse me,
Mr.
Mr. Chair.
McCoy, go ahead.
Ms. Jenkins, what I'm proposing to you is I would like to offer an amendment to move it to equivalent to what his authority currently is.
We'll accept that.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Go ahead, Ms. Jenkins.
And the other area of change is around the metrics. And we offer that for your approval and any suggestions that you might have for the various types of assistance. And those are the only changes at this time to the program guidelines.
Comments from the board, commissioners?
Yes, I would just ask that that be incorporated.
Into the motion.
Yes, please, if the members agree. Because actually, it's not
Commissioner
even
Botel.
about, it's not even about agreeing, members. It's about consistency. Because if the manager deems something's necessary, or the executive director deems it's necessary, that's not a normal function that would be coming to us either way. So I think that's making it consistent with his current spending authority.
Commissioner Botel, do you accept that amendment? Miller Anderson, do you accept that? A second? It's been accepted in second with the amendment for the manager's spending level incorporated into the guidelines. Any other comments? Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Botel?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller Anderson?
Yes.
Commissioner McCoy?
Yes.
Chair Lawson?
Yes.
That vote passes 4-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Jenkins. Discussion by Executive Director, Mr. Evans?
Yes, Mr. Chair, to address some of the remarks concerning or that were made during citizen comments.
Yes.
With respect to Avenue E, the board knows in the City Hall solicitation, it was contemplated that the developer would work with us to reconstruct Avenue E to address the drainage, to address parking, to address some of the issues that that roadway experiences. So our intent is to look at a program that reconstructs Avenue E from Blue Heron all the way to 13th Street. So that is part of the City Hall solicitation. So I did want to inform members of the public. We know that parking that was communicated by Mr. Mahoney was an issue for a significant amount of time, and it also was contemplated in the original site plan that was brought forward by Safe Harbor to provide for an opportunity for some parking spaces, and there was opposition from the community with providing for those parking spaces. I think it was a total of maybe 6 to 8 parking spaces that were going to be provided on the new constructed Avenue D, and that was met with opposition, so that those parking spaces effectively went away. We know that it is our intent to move forward with the City Hall campus, and there will be structured parking that will be provided for on the City Hall campus, but that again is across the street. So we did try to attempt to resolve that parking issue as part of the overall site plan for the Rybovich Safe Harbor campus. And I still think the roadway is wide enough to be able to accommodate that, so that can be a conversation that the City Council looks to take up to discuss when that does come before you. I did email both Chief Coleman and Deputy Chief Coppin concerning Mr. Lozman's remarks, and they will be contacting him tomorrow. And then as it relates to the mosquitoes and malaria, what have you, we can certainly reach out to the county to see if there's an opportunity for increased spraying, but usually it's based on specific issues, and they have to identify that as an issue, because we've had interactions with them on a couple of occasions with regards to spraying in certain areas, but we can certainly ask those questions. And that concludes my comments, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. General Counsel?
No comment.
Thank you. Comments from the board, starting with Commissioner Botel.
Yes, thank you. Our Singer Island Town Hall meeting is tomorrow night at 6 o'clock at the Ambassador Center. I hope everybody comes out. Please RSVP to Mary Small at msmall@riverabeach.org if you're interested in having a link to the virtual version of it, or if you want to come in person. We do have space restrictions, so we do need people to RSVP. And immediately following the Town Hall meeting is our jazz concert, so don't want to miss that. That starts at 7, and I promise that we'll keep our Town Hall meeting to just an hour so we can get over and see the jazz. And lastly, we have, I think, about 15 people already registered for our college courses this coming semester. So please, if you're interested in those college courses, they're free for city staff or for people who qualify for financial reasons, and you can get information by emailing Mary Small at msmall@riverabeach.org. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Botel. Commissioner Miller-Anderson?
Nothing other than I just wanted to congratulate Dr. Botel today on her first meeting with the Palm Beach League of Cities, and to think, I think all of us agree, and we're very happy with the arrangements we had for today. And we got a lot of compliments, by the way, for the hospitality towards all of the other electeds. So thank you all so much.
Thank you, Commissioner Miller-Anderson. Commissioner McCoy?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Great job today. Everything was nice. I didn't see a few of our CRA folks, but I think we did a good job, and I was very impressed, and I did receive comments. Mr. Evans, I want to share this with you, and perhaps we can address this, but I looked at the CRA plan that's on the CRA's website for the first time, I think, since 2019. While we can't amend our plan because that would then reset our years, correct? But we can redesign that plan. That is exactly like 14, 13 years ago. So even without changing the content, perhaps working with our graphic designer without changing the actual approved content, it definitely can use some sprucing up. So I would like to see that. That kind of took me back there. So I'm grateful, but you know, we have to do better with these projects, and I don't know how we marry the two when you have an industrial use abutting a downtown district or abutting a residential, but we have to be able to make these decisions from a planning perspective that's going to keep people safe. Obviously, you're going to need the ingress and egress, but I don't, you know, we're dealing with equipment, right? If that truck was to overturn, and I think I'm going to give this back so it can be in record. I mean, God forbid if it's something hazardous, fuel or something of the sort, which I know all of these facilities usually have something like that. We have to be able to address that, and I don't even want to have to deal with it. And if this is the time that we can address some additional reviews to making sure that we can understand how these trucks are going to have access to Avenue C and some of those side streets, which we already know, and that's part of the same concern that the residents are raising regarding Lakeview. These roads are, you know, 1960s, 1970s, and they haven't been expanded. The infrastructure is failing. So certainly, in addition to the turn radius, I just don't know how we can address that, because someone's going to get hurt if we're not being proactive. So I do know this is a work in progress, and I certainly would have loved if they would have committed to bearing the utilities and covering that cost as well. That'd be good if we can get some buy-in with them, but there's no expectations, and I hope it's not associated with any kind of site plan, because I just don't like that. We should make a decision based on the merits. If they want to be good citizens and cover that cost, they should do it. But I don't want the expectation or the appearance that because the city accepts $750,000 or whatever that amount is towards utility bills, that's some sort of carrot to believe that I'm going to vote for it, because I certainly can't do that. So I think we've made some good progress, and hopefully we'll see some of those coming back to us when we convene as a city council. So thank you so much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner McCoy. Mr. Evans, thank you for the meeting. Congratulations on being the Congo line leader today. It was amazing. Congrats, Dr. Botel, on your first meeting. It was very well run, and we really showcased our city. Very proud of you and the work you're doing. Mr. Evans, the recommendation was made earlier to possibly move the podium for future meetings, just so the peripheral of speakers can actually see the time, so they can know, because they're looking at addressing the chair versus actually seeing and being able to see both. And then Commissioner McCoy made a recommendation about development services and staff recommendation. It was the same recommendation that I had earlier when it came to just consistency with all items that come before the board. If we're going to get recommendations or requests for deny an item, we want to see that consistency with every item. The board still has the sense of making the direction and passing the vote regardless of the recommendation, but we want to see what the recommendation of staff is, whether it's for or against on every item that comes. Those were all of my comments. I really appreciate the commission, the board, and the city for the work that we're doing. I think we made some great leaps today and had some good progress. That presentation, as everybody knows, with Margaritaville coming to our city, is going to be phenomenal. We have an international brand. And I want people to really realize that Riviera Beach now has the potential of an international brand coming to our waterfront. So I want us to take heed in what we're doing and the strides we're making, because this commission, this board, and this staff is bringing this to the city. So everybody that's come before us, we are honored to continue to just push forward, that you paved the way. But I see the amazing progress that's being done. I'm proud to serve on this board with every single one of you. So thank you. Motion to adjourn.